What if I told you that tonight you'll discover the real reason the sorting hat never makes mistakes, and it has nothing to do with reading your mind? Hello, my dear magical dreamers. It's Abby. Welcome back to another evening of enchantment and wizarding wonder. You know, in our ordinary world filled with mundane routines and predictable days, sometimes we forget that magic isn't just about wands and spells. It's about finding the place where you truly belong, where your differences become your greatest strengths, and where lifelong friendships are forged in the warmth of flickering common room fires. Tonight, we're stepping through the grand oak doors of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry for an extraordinary 4-hour journey that will remind you why this ancient castle has captured hearts and minds for generations. This isn't just another trip to the wizarding world. This is your personal invitation to discover what makes Hogwarts the most magical place that has ever existed. So before you settle into your favorite armchair by the fire, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel, but only if you genuinely love these magical tales we share together. And I'd love to know in the comments which Hogwarts house calls to your heart and what magical moment from the wizarding world has stayed with you the longest. Now, light a candle if you have one nearby. Maybe brew yourself some warm butterbeer or hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. Pull your coziest blanket up to your chin and let's apparate together into tonight's magical adventure. Take a deep breath. Let the stresses of the day melt away and feel yourself crossing the threshold between the ordinary world and a realm where anything is possible. Tonight isn't just about fantastic spells and magical creatures, though we'll encounter plenty of both. This is about your discovery of what makes Hogwarts the most special place in any world, magical or otherwise. You'll walk through corridors that have witnessed 1,000 years of laughter and tears, feel the ancient magic that flows through every stone, experience the warmth of house loyalty that turns strangers into family, and find comfort in knowing that Hogwarts will always be there to welcome you home. You're about to become part of something truly extraordinary. 4 interconnected tales await you, each one revealing a different aspect of what makes Hogwarts legendary. We'll begin with a sorting ceremony that changes everything you thought you knew about belonging. Then we'll venture deep into the castle's most closely guarded mysteries, where ancient secrets wait for students brave enough to seek them. Our journey will take us through the daily magic of wizarding education, where even the most ordinary moments become extraordinary when shared with true friends. And finally, we'll witness the timeless bonds that transform Hogwarts students into something more precious than classmates or housemates. They become family. The 4 houses of Hogwarts each represent different aspects of the human spirit, but tonight you'll discover that the real magic happens when courage, loyalty, wisdom, and ambition work together, when students from different backgrounds learn that their differences don't divide them but make them stronger than any of them could be alone. The Great Hall is prepared. The sorting hat is waiting on its ancient stool, and the castle doors are standing open. Your Hogwarts letter has finally arrived, and your magical education is about to begin. This isn't just a journey through the wizarding world anymore. Tonight, it becomes your own magical awakening. Welcome to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Welcome to the place where magic lives, friendships flourish, and every student discovers that they've always had everything they need to be extraordinary. Welcome home. Your heart pounds like a drumbeat against your ribs as you step through the massive oak doors of Hogwarts Castle for the very first time. The Great Hall stretches before you like something from the most vivid dream you've ever had, except every detail is sharp and real and overwhelming in the most wonderful way possible. Thousands of floating candles drift lazily overhead, their warm golden light dancing across the enchanted ceiling that shows the star-filled sky outside, complete with drifting clouds that seem close enough to touch if you could just reach high enough. The sound of your nervous footsteps echoes against the ancient stone floors that have been worn smooth by centuries of students who walked this same path before you. Each step feels monumental, like you're following in the footsteps of every great witch and wizard who ever lived, and the weight of that history settles around your shoulders like an invisible cloak that's both thrilling and terrifying at the same time. The scent of the upcoming feast drifts through the air, rich and inviting, mixing with the smell of old magic that seems to seep from every stone, every tapestry, every carved wooden beam that supports the soaring ceiling. There's something else too, something harder to define but impossible to ignore. It's the smell of belonging, of home, of a place where extraordinary things happen every single day and nobody thinks twice about it because magic is simply part of life here. Your acceptance letter crinkles slightly in your sweaty palm, the parchment soft from being read and reread 100 times since it arrived by owl. Even now, standing in the Great Hall itself, part of you can't quite believe this is real, that you're really here, that you're actually about to be sorted into one of the 4 houses that will become your family for the next 7 years. The 4 long house tables stretch across the hall, each filled with students wearing robes trimmed in their house colors. The Gryffindor table buzzes with excited chatter and bursts of laughter, their red and gold banners hanging proudly overhead. The faces there are animated and eager, students leaning forward to get a better look at the new first years, some calling out encouragement to nervous-looking 11-year-olds. You can see the courage that defines this house in the way they sit up straight, in the way they meet challenges head-on, in the way they're already reaching out to welcome newcomers into their fold. At the Hufflepuff table, students wear their yellow and black colors with quiet pride, many of them offering warm smiles and welcoming waves to the incoming class. There's something immediately comforting about their section of the hall, something that makes you think of honey and fresh-baked bread, and the kind of friendship that lasts forever without needing to prove itself through grand gestures. The Hufflepuffs seem to glow with an inner warmth, their loyalty evident in the way they lean toward each other, creating an atmosphere of inclusion that makes even the most nervous first year feel a little more at ease. The Ravenclaw table emanates an aura of calm intelligence, their blue and silver decorations crisp and elegant. The students there observe the sorting ceremony with thoughtful expressions, some taking notes in small journals, others discussing what they're witnessing in low scholarly voices that somehow manage to sound both serious and excited at the same time. Their wit shines through in quiet comments and shared glances, and you can almost see the wheels turning in their minds as they analyze everything happening around them. And then there's the Slytherin table, draped in green and silver, that gleams like serpent scales in the candlelight. The students there carry themselves with a particular kind of confidence, watching the proceedings with calculating eyes that miss nothing. Despite everything you've heard about Slytherin House, you find yourself curious about them rather than afraid. There's something compelling about their self-assurance, something that speaks to ambition and the drive to achieve greatness. Their cunning is evident not in meanness but in the strategic way they observe everything, clearly thinking several steps ahead. At the high table, the teachers sit in their elaborate chairs, watching over the ceremony with expressions ranging from benevolent amusement to keen interest. Professor McGonagall stands at attention beside a 3-legged stool that holds the most famous hat in the wizarding world. The sorting hat sits there looking ancient and slightly shabby, its pointed tip drooping to one side, giving no hint of the centuries of wisdom and magic contained within its worn fabric. Professor Albus Dumbledore presides over everything from the center of the high table, his long silver beard flowing over his deep purple robes, his half-moon spectacles perched on his crooked nose. Even from across the hall, his blue eyes seem to twinkle with secrets and kindness in equal measure. When he looks toward the group of first years, you feel as though he's seeing not just who you are now, but who you have the potential to become. There's something immensely comforting about his presence, as if just being in the same room as him makes everything somehow safer and more magical. The other professors are equally fascinating in their own ways. Professor Snape sits with his black hair hanging like curtains around his pale face, his dark eyes surveying the new students with an unreadable expression that might be calculating or might be protective or might be something else entirely. Professor Sprout beams at everyone with dirt still under her fingernails from working in the greenhouses, her round face glowing with maternal warmth. Professor Flitwick perches on his stack of books, practically vibrating with excitement for the new term to begin, his tiny frame containing enough enthusiasm for someone 3 times his size. As you wait with the other first years, you take in every detail of your new companions, these fellow students who will share this incredible journey with you. There's a girl with bushy brown hair who keeps glancing at a book she's somehow managed to keep hidden in her robes, clearly trying to memorize one last fact about Hogwarts before the ceremony begins. Her dedication to learning is admirable, and you can almost see her mind working to absorb every piece of information she can gather. A red-headed boy fidgets nervously with his 2 short sleeves, shooting anxious looks at the Gryffindor table where several older students with the same distinctive hair color are watching him with encouraging grins. The family resemblance is unmistakable, and you can see the weight of expectation in his shoulders even as pride shines in his eyes when he looks at his siblings. Another boy with platinum blonde hair stands with perfect posture, his expensive robes impeccable, but you notice his hands trembling slightly at his sides. Despite his composed exterior, he's clearly just as nervous as everyone else, which somehow makes him seem more human and less intimidating than his perfect appearance might suggest. A girl with long black hair and kind eyes offers a reassuring smile to anyone who catches her gaze. Her natural compassion evident in the way she tries to comfort those around her without drawing attention to herself. A boy with dark skin and an infectious grin keeps whispering jokes to calm the nerves of those around him, his humor serving as a shield against the overwhelming nature of this moment. Each face tells a story of hopes and fears, of excitement and terror, of children who are about to leave their childhood behind and step into a world where they'll discover abilities they never knew they possessed. You wonder what story your own face is telling, what the other students see when they look at you. Are your nerves as obvious as theirs? Can they see the mixture of anticipation and anxiety that's making your stomach flutter like it's full of pixies? Professor McGonagall's voice cuts through the nervous chatter as she calls for attention. Her Scottish accent rings clear and authoritative across the Great Hall, and immediately every conversation stops, every head turns toward her. The silence that follows is profound, filled with anticipation that seems to crackle in the air like static electricity before a thunderstorm. "Welcome to Hogwarts," she begins, her voice carrying easily to every corner of the vast hall. "Before we begin our feast, you will be sorted into your houses. The sorting is a very important ceremony because while you are here, your house will be something like your family within Hogwarts. You will have classes with the rest of your house, sleep in your house dormitory, and spend free time in your house common room." As she speaks, you find yourself hanging on every word, trying to memorize this moment because you know you'll want to remember it forever. This is the speech that every Hogwarts student has heard, the words that mark the true beginning of their magical education. The tradition of it, the ceremony of it, the importance of it all settles over you like a warm cloak. The four houses are called Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Professor McGonagall continues, and at each name, the corresponding table erupts in cheers and applause. Each house has its own noble history, and each has produced outstanding witches and wizards. While you are at Hogwarts, your triumphs will earn your house points, while any rule-breaking will lose house points. At the end of the year, the house with the most points is awarded the House Cup, a great honor. The competitive aspect adds another layer of nervousness to the ceremony. Not only will you be placed in a house, but your actions throughout the year will reflect on that entire community. The responsibility feels enormous for an 11-year-old, but there's something exciting about it too, about being part of something bigger than yourself. "I hope each of you will be a credit to whichever house becomes yours," Professor McGonagall concludes, her stern expression softening slightly as she looks over the group of first years. "The sorting ceremony will take place in a few moments in front of the rest of the school. I suggest you all smarten yourselves up as much as you can while you are waiting." As she speaks these words, you become suddenly conscious of your appearance. Is your hair messy from the journey? Are your robes hanging properly? You're not the only one who feels this way, as nervous hands begin smoothing down hair and adjusting collars throughout the group of first years. Professor McGonagall disappears through a door behind the high table, presumably to make final preparations for the ceremony. The moment she's gone, whispered conversations break out among the first years, everyone sharing their knowledge about the sorting hat and speculating about which house they might be placed in. "My brothers told me you have to wrestle a troll," the red-headed boy whispers to anyone who will listen, though his grin suggests he doesn't entirely believe this himself. "That's ridiculous," the girl with bushy hair responds immediately. Hogwarts, a history, clearly states that the sorting hat examines your mind and places you in the house that best matches your character and abilities. "But what if it can't decide?" asks another first year anxiously. "What if you don't really fit anywhere?" "The hat always decides," says a calm voice, and you turn to see that one of the ghosts has appeared among the group. Nearly headless, Nick floats there with his head hanging at an odd angle, his presence both startling and oddly comforting. "I've watched thousands of sortings over the centuries, and the hat has never failed to place a student." "Does it hurt?" asks a small girl with pigtails. "Not at all," nearly headless Nick chuckles, the sound echoing strangely. "Though I must say, it can be quite an experience having something that old and wise poking about in your mind. The hat sees things in you that you might not even know about yourself yet. This information is both reassuring and terrifying. The idea that the Sorting Hat might know you better than you know yourself is daunting, but there's something hopeful about it too. Maybe it will see potential in you that you've never recognized, abilities you've never discovered, qualities you've never acknowledged. The wait feels eternal, though it can't be more than a few minutes before Professor McGonagall returns. She's carrying a long roll of parchment, and her expression has become even more serious and formal than before. Form a line, she instructs, and there's a flurry of movement as 30 or so first years try to organize themselves. When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted. The sorting hat suddenly comes to life, its brim opening wide like a mouth, and it begins to sing. The song is different every year, you've heard, but always explains the qualities that each house values and the importance of the sorting ceremony. This year's song speaks of courage and chivalry for Gryffindor, loyalty and hard work for Hufflepuff, wisdom and wit for Ravenclaw, and ambition and cunning for Slytherin. As the song concludes, the entire Great Hall erupts in applause, and you find yourself clapping too, caught up in the excitement and tradition of the moment. This is really happening. You're really about to be sorted into your Hogwarts house. The first name is called, and a nervous-looking boy approaches the stool with shaking legs. The moment the hat touches his head, it shouts, "Ravenclaw," and the blue and silver table explodes in celebration, welcoming their newest member with cheers and applause. One by one, names are called, and one by one, your fellow first years are sorted into their new homes. Some sortings are quick, the hat barely touching their heads before announcing their house. Others take longer, and you can see the student sitting very still while the hat presumably has a longer conversation with them about where they belong. As the ceremony continues and your name gets closer in the alphabet, your nervousness reaches fever pitch, your palms are sweating, your heart is racing, and you feel like you might be sick from the combination of excitement and terror. What if the hat can't decide where you belong? What if it sees something in you that you don't want others to know? What if you're sorted into a house where you don't fit in? But then you remember nearly headless Nick's words about the hat never failing to place a student, and Professor McGonagall's assurance that each house has produced outstanding witches and wizards. Whatever happens, wherever you're placed, it will be where you're meant to be. Finally, inevitably, your name echoes across the Great Hall in Professor McGonagall's clear voice. Your legs feel like jelly as you walk toward the stool, aware that hundreds of eyes are watching your every step. The sorting hat looks even more ancient and mysterious up close, its fabric worn by centuries of use, its brim shadowing whatever magic lies within. Professor McGonagall places the hat on your head, and immediately your world changes. The Great Hall fades away, the voices of hundreds of students become a distant murmur, and you find yourself in what feels like a private conversation with something incredibly old and wise and knowing. The hat's voice speaks directly into your mind, warm and slightly amused, as if it finds the whole process of sorting students endlessly interesting rather than routine. It talks to you about what it sees in your character, your potential, your fears and hopes and dreams. It considers your qualities, weighing courage against loyalty, ambition against wisdom, trying to determine where you'll thrive and grow and become the best version of yourself. The conversation feels like it lasts hours, though you know it's probably only seconds or minutes. The hat asks you questions, not out loud but directly in your thoughts, and you find yourself being more honest than you've ever been with anyone, even yourself. It sees through any pretense or facade, understanding not just who you are now, but who you have the potential to become. And then, with a sense of satisfaction and certainty that fills your entire being, the sorting hat makes its decision and shouts your house name for the entire Great Hall to hear. The sorting hat's revelation about your true nature burns in your mind like a warm flame as you make your way to your new house table, the cheers and applause of your new family washing over you in waves of acceptance and belonging. The decision the hat made feels absolutely right, as if every piece of your personality has finally found its proper place in the grand puzzle of Hogwarts life. You can't stop smiling as you take your seat among students who share the same values, the same outlook on life, the same core beliefs that make you who you are. Your house table erupts in celebration as you join them, older students reaching out to shake your hands, pat your shoulders, and welcome you with genuine warmth that makes your heart swell with pride and gratitude. The faces around you are bright with excitement, not just for gaining a new house member, but for the potential they see in you, the contributions you might make to their community over the next 7 years. The prefects introduce themselves with obvious pride in their house colors, their badges gleaming in the candlelight as they explain traditions and customs that stretch back centuries. They speak of legendary graduates who once sat at this very table, of house competitions and achievements, of the common room that will become your second home, and the dormitory where you'll share late-night conversations with roommates who will become lifelong friends. As the sorting ceremony continues around you, you find yourself studying the faces of your new housemates with intense curiosity. Each person represents a different aspect of your house's character, but somehow they all fit together like pieces of a complex magical puzzle. There's the 7th-year student council representative with her natural leadership abilities shining in everything she does. The quiet 3rd year who seems to absorb every word spoken around him, clearly possessing the kind of deep intelligence that comes from careful observation and thoughtful analysis. A pair of 5th-year twins sit across from you, their identical faces animated with mischievous grins that suggest they're always plotting some harmless but elaborate prank. Their creativity and cleverness are evident in the way they communicate with each other through subtle glances and barely perceptible gestures, conducting entire conversations without saying a word aloud. Near the end of the table, a 4th-year girl with paint-stained fingers sketches something in a notebook while simultaneously following the sorting ceremony, her artistic talent evident in the fluid way her hand moves across the page. Her ability to multitask and see beauty in everything around her represents another facet of your house's character. The house ghost materializes beside the table, translucent and shimmering in the candlelight, their presence adding an element of history and continuity that makes you realize you're not just joining a group of current students, but becoming part of a legacy that stretches back through the centuries. The ghost stories of past students and historical events help you understand that your house has always been more than just a school assignment. It's been a family that transcends generations. As the last first year is sorted and takes their place at their new house table, the entire Great Hall settles into expectant silence. Professor Dumbledore rises from his ornate chair at the center of the high table, his long beard flowing over his elaborate robes, his presence commanding attention without any need for raised voice or dramatic gesture. When he speaks, his words carry the weight of centuries of wisdom and the gentle authority that comes from truly caring about every student in his charge. "Welcome," he begins, his voice somehow reaching every corner of the vast hall despite being spoken in conversational tones, "to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our feast, I would like to say a few words, and here they are: nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak, thank you." The seemingly nonsensical words break the formal atmosphere like a charm, and the entire hall erupts in laughter and applause. This is vintage Dumbledore, you realize, using humor and whimsy to remind everyone that magic should be joyful, that learning should be fun, that the most important lessons often come wrapped in unexpected packages, as if summoned by magic. Which of course they have been. The golden plates and goblets before you fill with more food than you've ever seen in one place. Roast beef and chicken, lamb chops and pork chops, Yorkshire puddings and roast potatoes, vegetables prepared in dozens of different ways, gravies and sauces that smell like pure comfort food heaven. The house elves of Hogwarts have outdone themselves, creating a feast that represents not just nourishment for the body, but a celebration of community and belonging. Your housemates immediately begin serving food and sharing stories, making sure you feel included in every conversation, every joke, every bit of house lore that gets passed down from older students to newer ones. They tell you about the location of your common room and the password system that changes regularly to keep it secure and exclusive. They describe the comfortable armchairs arranged around the fireplace where students gather to study, socialize, and share the experiences that bond them together as a house family. "The common room is more than just a place to spend time," explains a 6th-year prefect as she passes you a plate of perfectly prepared vegetables. "It's where the real magic of house life happens. Late-night study sessions before important exams, celebration parties when someone achieves something special, quiet conversations when someone needs support or advice. It's where strangers become friends and friends become family." The dormitories, you learn, are designed to encourage both privacy and community. Each student has their own bed with enchanted curtains that provide silence and solitude when needed, but the common areas encourage interaction and friendship. The older students share stories of midnight feasts, whispered conversations about crushes and dreams, collaborative projects that brought roommates together to create something amazing. As the main course gives way to desserts that appear as magically and abundantly as everything else, your head of house approaches the table to address the new students personally. Their presence is both authoritative and nurturing, embodying the qualities that make your house special while making it clear that they take their responsibility for your well-being seriously. "Welcome to your new home," they say, their voice carrying genuine warmth and pride. "You have been sorted into this house because the sorting hat recognized in you the qualities that we value most highly. But being sorted is only the beginning. Over the next 7 years, you will have the opportunity to develop those qualities, to learn from your housemates, and to contribute to the legacy that makes our house great." They explain the expectations that come with house membership, not as restrictions, but as opportunities to grow and excel. Academic achievement is important, but so is character development, friendship, and service to the broader Hogwarts community. Your house has a reputation to maintain, not through competition with other houses, but through the excellence and integrity that each member brings to everything they do. Your housemates are your family. The head of house continues, gesturing to the students gathered around the long table. They will celebrate your successes, support you through challenges, and help you become the best version of yourself. In return, you will do the same for them. This reciprocal relationship is what makes house life at Hogwarts so special and so transformative. As the evening progresses and the feast begins to wind down, you notice something magical happening that has nothing to do with spells or potions. The artificial barriers between year levels are dissolving as older students naturally mentor younger ones, sharing advice about classes, teachers, and navigating the complexities of magical education. Seventh years, who seemed impossibly sophisticated and mature when you first saw them, are now laughing at jokes told by first years, treating the newest house members as equals rather than inferior newcomers. The prefects begin organizing the traditional tour of the castle for new students, but it's clear that this won't be a simple orientation walk. Your housemates are planning to show you not just where everything is located, but why each location matters, what memories are associated with different corridors and classrooms, what secrets and traditions are connected to various parts of the castle. Hogwarts reveals its secrets gradually, explains a second year as you prepare to leave the Great Hall. The castle is alive in ways that most people don't understand. It responds to the students who live here, changing and adapting to meet our needs. The more you explore, the more you discover, and the more you appreciate the magic that surrounds us every day. As your house group begins to move through the castle corridors, you're struck by how different everything looks when you're walking with people who belong here, who know the history and stories behind every portrait, every statue, every architectural detail that makes Hogwarts unique. The paintings greet your housemates by name, offering comments and advice that suggest ongoing relationships built over years of interaction. The moving staircases, which seemed chaotic and unpredictable during your first journey through the castle, now reveal patterns and logic that make sense when explained by students who have learned to work with them rather than against them. Your housemates show you shortcuts and secret passages, not the dangerous or forbidden ones, but the practical routes that will help you navigate efficiently between classes and activities. "The castle wants to help you," says a third year as you climb a spiral staircase that seems to adjust its pace to accommodate the group. But you have to learn its language, understand its personality. Hogwarts has moods and preferences just like any living thing. Once you accept that, everything becomes easier. The tour takes you past classrooms where you'll spend countless hours over the next 7 years, each one designed to facilitate learning in its specific subject area. The potions classroom in the dungeons, cool and shadowy, filled with ingredients and equipment that seem to whisper of mysteries waiting to be unlocked. The charms classroom on the 3rd floor, bright and cheerful, where magic feels playful and accessible rather than intimidating. You pass the library, vast and filled with more books than you could read in several lifetimes, its silence broken only by the soft scratch of quills on parchment and the whispered conversations of students deep in research. The older students point out sections that will be particularly useful for your classes, but they also mention areas where you might find books about topics that interest you personally, reminding you that education at Hogwarts extends far beyond required coursework. The Great Hall looks different when seen from the perspective of someone who belongs here, someone who will eat hundreds of meals at these tables, attend countless ceremonies and celebrations, share moments of triumph and disappointment with the community that has become your extended family. The floating candles that seemed purely decorative during the sorting ceremony now represent the warmth and light that make Hogwarts feel like home. As the tour continues through corridors lined with portraits, whose occupants nod and smile in recognition of your house colors, you begin to understand that Hogwarts is more than just a school building. It's a living entity that responds to the emotions and needs of its inhabitants, a place where magic isn't just taught but lived, where every stone and tapestry and piece of enchanted ceiling contributes to an atmosphere that nurtures growth and learning and belonging. Finally, the group arrives at the entrance to your house common room, and the moment you step inside, you know you're truly home. The space is designed to reflect your house's values and personality, with colors and decorations and furniture arrangements that feel immediately comfortable and welcoming. Older students are already gathered around the fireplace, some studying, others playing wizard chess or other magical games, a few simply talking and enjoying each other's company. This is where you'll spend most of your free time, explains a prefect as you look around the room with wonder. The common room is exclusively for house members, so you can relax and be yourself without worrying about inter-house politics or competition. It's your sanctuary, your place to unwind after challenging classes or difficult days. The dormitories, when you finally see them, exceed all your expectations for comfort and privacy. Your bed is perfectly made with linens in house colors, your trunk has been delivered and placed at the foot of the bed, and the whole space feels like it was designed specifically for you. The other first years who will share this dormitory seem just as amazed and delighted as you are, and you can already sense the beginnings of friendships that will last long beyond your Hogwarts years. As you settle into your new bed that first night, surrounded by the gentle sounds of a castle full of sleeping students, you reflect on everything that has changed in the span of a single evening. You arrived at Hogwarts as a nervous 11-year-old, unsure of where you belonged, and you're falling asleep as a proud member of your house, surrounded by people who understand and appreciate the qualities that make you unique. The Sorting Hat's decision feels more perfect with each passing hour. Your house isn't just a random assignment or a convenient way to organize students. It's a community of people who share your values, who will challenge you to grow while accepting you exactly as you are, who will become the family you choose rather than the one you're born into. Tomorrow will bring your first classes, your first real taste of magical education, your first opportunities to prove that you belong at Hogwarts and deserve the trust that the Sorting Hat placed in you. But tonight, you're simply a happy, exhausted new student falling asleep in a magical castle, surrounded by friends you're only beginning to know, preparing for adventures you can't even imagine yet. The moment arrives 3 weeks into term when you must choose between house loyalty and doing what's right. And you realize that true belonging means being accepted for who you are, not who others expect you to be. It happens during what should have been an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. But at Hogwarts, you're learning that no day is truly ordinary when magic fills every corner of your existence and moral choices hide behind even the simplest interactions. You're walking back from your first successful transfiguration class, still buzzing with excitement from finally managing to turn your matchstick into a needle, when you hear voices coming from an empty classroom. The tone immediately catches your attention because it's not the usual chatter of students discussing homework or weekend plans. There's something urgent and secretive about the conversation that makes you pause in the corridor, your newly developed magical instincts warning you that something important is happening. Through the slightly open door, you can see 2 older students from your house, 7th years, whose opinions carry significant weight in house hierarchy and social dynamics. They're talking in low, intense whispers with someone you can't quite see, someone whose voice carries an undertone of authority that suggests they might be a prefect or even a head boy or girl from another house. The plan is simple. One of your housemates is saying, their voice carrying a confidence that sounds forced and unnatural. We know exactly when the other houses will be in the Great Hall for their study groups. It's the perfect opportunity to search their common rooms for information about their strategies for the upcoming inter-house competitions. Your stomach drops as you realize what you're overhearing. This isn't just normal competitive spirit or harmless school rivalry. This is a deliberate plan to cheat, to violate the trust and privacy that makes Hogwarts feel safe and welcoming for everyone. The idea of students from your house, students you've been learning to respect and admire, planning something so fundamentally dishonest, makes you feel sick with disappointment and confusion. "Are you sure this is necessary?" asks the second voice, and you can hear doubt and reluctance in the tone. "I mean, we've always been competitive, but we've also always been honest about it. This feels different. This feels wrong." Wrong. The first voice becomes sharp and defensive. What's wrong is losing to houses that don't deserve to win. What's wrong is watching inferior students succeed because they get lucky or because the teachers play favorites. This is just evening the playing field, making sure that merit is rewarded instead of chance. The justification makes your skin crawl because you can hear how the speaker has convinced themselves that cheating is actually justice, that breaking rules is somehow serving a higher moral purpose. This is exactly the kind of twisted logic that leads good people to make terrible choices, and you realize you're witnessing something that could damage not just your house's reputation but your own understanding of right and wrong. "I don't know." The reluctant voice continues. "If we get caught, it won't just affect us. The whole house will suffer. Our younger students, the first years who just got here, they'll have to live with the consequences of our choices. Is winning a competition really worth potentially destroying the trust that other houses have in us?" This perspective gives you hope that not everyone is committed to this plan, that there might be a way to stop it without having to report your own housemates to the teachers. But the first voice responds with increasing anger and frustration, clearly not interested in considering the broader implications of their proposed actions. "That's exactly the kind of soft thinking that's been holding us back," they snap. "While we're worrying about trust and fairness, the other houses are probably planning their own advantages. Competition isn't about playing nice, it's about winning, and winners are the ones who are willing to do whatever it takes to succeed." The conversation continues, and you realize with growing horror that this isn't just a vague plan being discussed by two students. This is a detailed conspiracy involving multiple older students from your house, people whose leadership and example are supposed to guide younger students like yourself. They've been planning this for weeks, mapping out security routines, identifying vulnerable times when other common rooms will be empty, even recruiting younger students to serve as lookouts and messengers. Your heart pounds as you realize that your name has been mentioned as one of the potential recruits. As a first year, you would be less suspicious if caught in areas where you don't belong. You could claim to be lost or confused about castle geography, and most people would accept that explanation without further investigation. The idea that your innocence and newness to Hogwarts would be exploited as part of a cheating scheme makes you feel violated and manipulated. The new first years are perfect for this. The first voice continues with satisfaction. They're still figuring out where everything is, so no one will question them being in strange parts of the castle. Plus, they're so eager to prove themselves, to show that they belong in the house, that they'll do almost anything if we frame it as house loyalty and service. This statement crystallizes everything that's wrong with the situation. These older students aren't just planning to cheat, they're planning to corrupt the newest members of your house, to take advantage of your desire to belong and fit in to make you complicit in their dishonesty. The betrayal of trust feels personal and devastating, like discovering that people you've been taught to look up to have been planning to use you all along. You step back from the door, your mind racing as you try to process what you've learned and figure out what you should do with this terrible knowledge. Part of you wants to pretend you never heard anything, to go back to your common room and focus on homework and normal first-year concerns. But you know that ignorance isn't really an option anymore, that staying silent would make you just as guilty as the students who are actively planning to cheat. The walk back to your common room feels endless, every step weighted with the knowledge that your understanding of your house and your place in it has been fundamentally changed. The corridors that felt welcoming and familiar this morning now seem charged with tension and moral complexity that you're not sure you're mature enough to handle. When you enter the common room, it looks exactly the same as it did when you left for class, but everything feels different now. The older students reading by the fireplace might be the ones planning to cheat. The prefects helping younger students with homework might be the ones recruiting innocent first years to participate in dishonest schemes. The house pride and loyalty that felt so comforting and secure now seems potentially dangerous, a tool that could be used to manipulate your better judgment. That evening at dinner, you find it almost impossible to concentrate on the conversations happening around you. Your housemates are discussing upcoming Quidditch tryouts, comparing notes about different professors' teaching styles, sharing excitement about weekend trips to Hogsmeade. All the normal, wonderful aspects of house life continue exactly as they should. But underneath it all, you know that some members of your house community are planning actions that could damage everyone's reputation and relationships. The next few days pass in a blur of internal conflict and mounting anxiety. You throw yourself into your studies partly as a distraction from the moral dilemma you're facing, but mostly because you want to prove to yourself that success can be achieved through honest hard work rather than cheating and manipulation. Your professors notice your increased focus and dedication, offering encouraging comments that make you feel proud of your accomplishments and even more determined to maintain your integrity. In potions class, Professor Snape's praise for your carefully prepared cure for boils feels like validation that you're on the right path. Adequate work, he says, which from Professor Snape is practically effusive approval. It's clear that someone has been paying attention to proper technique rather than relying on shortcuts or lucky guesses. The irony of his comment isn't lost on you, given what you know about the shortcuts that some of your housemates are planning to take in inter-house competitions. You realize that Professor Snape, despite his stern exterior and intimidating reputation, values the same qualities that you're trying to develop: careful preparation, honest effort, and respect for the processes that lead to genuine mastery. Your charms class provides another source of encouragement when Professor Flitwick compliments your wand work during a particularly challenging levitation exercise. Excellent form, he squeaks with genuine enthusiasm. You're not just making the feather float, you're understanding the underlying principles that make the magic work. That kind of thoughtful approach will serve you well throughout your magical education. These positive reinforcements from your professors help strengthen your resolve to handle the cheating situation in a way that maintains your integrity while hopefully protecting your house from the consequences of other students' poor choices. But knowing what you should do and figuring out how to do it are two very different challenges. The solution comes to you during a conversation with nearly headless Nick, who appears in the corridor while you're walking to your next class. The Gryffindor ghost has a habit of offering advice to students who seem troubled, and apparently your internal struggle is more visible than you realized. You look like someone wrestling with a difficult decision, he observes, his head wobbling slightly on his partially severed neck. In my many years of observing Hogwarts students, I've learned that the hardest choices are usually the most important ones. Without revealing any specific details about what you've overheard, you ask him about situations where house loyalty might conflict with doing what's right. His response is both wise and reassuring, exactly what you need to hear to clarify your own thinking. True house loyalty, nearly headless Nick explains, isn't about blindly supporting every action taken by your housemates. It's about upholding the values that make your house worth belonging to in the first place. Sometimes the most loyal thing you can do is prevent your house from making choices that would damage its reputation and integrity. This perspective helps you realize that stopping the cheating plan isn't a betrayal of your house. It's actually the most house-loyal action you could take. By preventing older students from corrupting younger ones and damaging relationships with other houses, you would be protecting the values and community that made you proud to be sorted into your house in the first place. The next morning, you make your decision. Instead of going directly to the teachers, which would feel like an ultimate betrayal of house unity, you approach the reluctant seventh year whose doubts you overheard during that first conversation. You find them alone in the library, studying for now tall-level exams, and you can see the stress and internal conflict written across their face. I need to talk to you about something important, you say quietly, settling into the chair across from them. It's about the plan some of our housemates are discussing for the inter-house competitions. Their face goes pale, confirming that your guess about their continued involvement and discomfort was correct. How do you know about that, they ask, but there's relief in their voice rather than anger, as if they've been hoping for an excuse to extract themselves from the situation. You explain how you overheard the conversation and how it's been weighing on your conscience ever since. You talk about your understanding of house loyalty and your concern for the younger students who might be manipulated into participating. Most importantly, you offer to work together to find a solution that prevents the cheating without necessarily destroying the relationships and trust that make house life meaningful. The conversation that follows is one of the most mature and important discussions you've ever had. The older student admits that they've been feeling increasingly uncomfortable with the plan, but haven't known how to extract themselves without seeming disloyal or cowardly. They appreciate that you approach them privately rather than going directly to the authorities, and they're willing to work with you to find a better solution. Together, you develop a plan that addresses the root causes of the cheating scheme rather than just stopping this particular incident. The older student agrees to speak privately with the other seventh years involved, appealing to their better judgment and reminding them of the values that brought them all to this house in the first place. They'll emphasize the potential consequences for younger students and the damage that getting caught could do to house relationships and reputation. Meanwhile, you volunteer to work with other first years to organize legitimate study groups and preparation sessions for inter-house competitions. Instead of cheating to gain advantage, your house can succeed through collaborative learning, peer mentoring, and the kind of honest preparation that makes victory meaningful and sustainable. The resolution comes more easily than you expected. When presented with a thoughtful alternative and reminded of their responsibilities as role models for younger students, most of the older students involved in the cheating plan readily abandon it. They seem relieved to return to honorable competition, and several of them thank you privately for having the courage to speak up when they lost sight of their own values. The first-year study groups you organize become incredibly popular and successful, bringing together students from different year levels in your house to share knowledge and support each other's academic growth. The collaborative atmosphere reinforces house unity while maintaining the integrity and honesty that make your achievements genuinely meaningful. As the inter-house competitions approach, you feel proud of your house's preparation and confident in your chances of success. More importantly, you feel proud of yourself for finding a way to uphold your values while strengthening rather than damaging the house relationships that have become so important to you. The night before the first competition, your head of house visits the common room to address all the students who will be participating. Their words about honor, integrity, and the true meaning of house pride resonate powerfully with everyone present, but especially with you, knowing the role you played in ensuring that your house's participation would reflect those values. Win or lose, your head of house concludes, I want you all to remember that the greatest victory is being able to look back on your efforts with genuine pride, knowing that you competed with honor and integrity. That's the kind of victory that lasts long after trophies tarnish and records are broken. As you settle into your dormitory bed that night, surrounded by the peaceful sounds of your sleeping housemates, you reflect on how much you've grown in just a few weeks at Hogwarts. You arrived as a nervous first year unsure of your place in the magical world, and you're becoming someone who can navigate complex moral situations while maintaining both personal integrity and community loyalty. 3 weeks after your moral triumph with the house cheating incident, you're exploring the castle's endless corridors during a free period when you stumble upon something that suggests Hogwarts is hiding secrets far older and more important than any student realizes. The discovery happens during what should have been a simple walk to clear your head after a particularly challenging potions essay. But at Hogwarts, you're learning that even the most mundane activities can lead to extraordinary revelations that change everything you thought you knew about magic and the ancient castle that has become your home. The corridor you're walking through is one you've passed dozens of times before, located on the 5th floor between the prefect's bathroom and a cluster of empty classrooms that smell perpetually of old parchment and forgotten spells. But today, something is different. Maybe it's the way the afternoon light streams through the tall windows, casting shadows at angles you've never noticed before. Maybe it's your increased sensitivity to magical energy after weeks of intensive spell work and potion brewing. Or maybe Hogwarts itself has decided you're ready to see what has been hidden in plain sight all along. The portrait that catches your attention depicts a medieval wizard in elaborate robes, his painted eyes following students as they pass by, which is normal enough for Hogwarts artwork. But today, as you pause to examine the intricate details of his costume and the strange symbols embroidered on his sleeves, you notice something that makes your heart skip a beat. The wizard's painted hand is pointing, not randomly or decoratively, but with clear intention toward a specific spot on the opposite wall. Following his gesture, you approach what appears to be a perfectly ordinary section of stone wall, indistinguishable from hundreds of other similar surfaces throughout the castle. But as you get closer, your enhanced magical senses detect something that makes your skin tingle with anticipation. There's power here, old magic that has been sleeping for decades or perhaps centuries, waiting for someone with the right combination of curiosity and magical sensitivity to discover its secrets. Running your fingers along the stone surface, you feel subtle variations in texture that don't match the surrounding masonry. The differences are almost imperceptible, but your growing understanding of magical construction makes you realize that what looks like natural stone weathering is actually a carefully crafted concealment charm designed to hide something important. The magic feels ancient and powerful, but not dangerous or malevolent. If anything, it carries a sense of protection and preservation, as if whatever lies behind this wall was hidden to keep it safe rather than to keep people out. The medieval wizard in the portrait watches your investigation with apparent approval, his painted expression shifting in ways that portraits shouldn't be able to manage. When you glance back at him, he nods encouragingly and gestures more emphatically toward the wall, confirming that your instincts are correct and that you're meant to be discovering whatever secret this corridor has been keeping. Your fingers find the key almost by accident, a small section of stone that gives slightly under pressure, like a hidden button disguised as natural rock formation. The moment you press it, the entire wall section shimmers like heat mirages over summer pavement, revealing itself to be an illusion covering a narrow doorway that leads into darkness beyond your sight. The hidden passage is barely wide enough for one person. Its walls lined with the same ancient stone as the rest of Hogwarts, but carved with symbols and runes that you don't recognize from any of your textbooks. The air inside is cool and dry, carrying scents of old magic and preserved parchment that remind you of the restricted section of the library, but with an additional element that speaks of secrets deliberately hidden rather than simply restricted. Your heart pounds with a mixture of excitement and nervousness as you step into the passage, your footsteps echoing softly in the enclosed space. This is exactly the kind of exploration that could get you into serious trouble if discovered by teachers or prefects, but the compelling sense that you're meant to be here, that this discovery is somehow part of your magical education, overrides your natural caution. The passage leads downward through a series of gentle turns and switchbacks, suggesting that it travels not just through the castle walls but beneath the foundation itself, into areas of Hogwarts that most students never know exist. Emergency torches flicker to life as you pass, ancient magic responding to your presence with illumination that reveals increasingly elaborate carvings and decorations on the walls around you. The symbols become more complex and meaningful as you descend, depicting scenes of magical instruction and learning that suggest this passage was created by the founders themselves as part of Hogwarts' original design. You recognize elements from the heraldic devices of all four houses worked into larger compositions that show wizards and witches working together despite their different approaches to magic and life. The passage finally opens into a circular chamber that takes your breath away with its beauty and obvious importance. The room is perhaps 30 feet in diameter, with a domed ceiling that sparkles with what appears to be captured starlight. The walls are lined with alcoves containing artifacts, books, scrolls, and magical instruments that radiate power and knowledge accumulated over centuries of magical education. At the center of the chamber stands a pedestal supporting a crystal orb, the size of a Quidditch snitch, its surface swirling with colors and patterns that seem to respond to your emotional state. As you approach it, the orb pulses with warm light that makes you feel welcomed and recognized, as if it has been waiting specifically for you to find it. The artifacts in the wall alcoves represent magical knowledge from every period of Hogwarts history, from the founders' original teaching materials to more recent additions that suggest this chamber has been maintained and updated by generations of students and faculty who were trusted with its secrets. Ancient spellbooks rest beside modern magical theory texts, creating a comprehensive library of magical knowledge that spans centuries of discovery and innovation. One alcove contains what appears to be personal items belonging to the four founders themselves. A ruby-hilted sword that must be Godric Gryffindor's, a small golden cup that radiates warmth and comfort like Helga Hufflepuff's legendary hospitality, an ornate diadem that seems to enhance your thinking just by looking at it, and a locket whose green stones pulse with the ambitious energy of Salazar Slytherin's magical philosophy. Another section of the chamber houses magical instruments that you recognize from advanced charms theory but have never seen in person, thinking caps that can enhance memory and concentration, time turners that allow limited manipulation of temporal flow, and communication devices that can connect minds across vast distances. These are tools of advanced magical education, resources that could accelerate learning and understanding for students ready to handle their power responsibly. The books and scrolls represent knowledge that goes far beyond anything covered in standard Hogwarts curriculum. Texts on magical theory that wouldn't normally be studied until new to level, treatises on advanced transfiguration and potions work that could revolutionize your understanding of these subjects, and historical documents that reveal the true purposes behind many of Hogwarts' traditions and customs. As you explore the chamber, you become aware that you're not alone. Other students have found their way here before you, but not recently. Dust patterns on some of the artifacts suggest they haven't been disturbed for months or even years, while others show signs of recent examination and study. This is clearly a place that reveals itself to students who have demonstrated particular dedication to learning and moral development, not a random discovery that anyone could stumble upon. A leather-bound journal lies open on a reading stand near the center of the chamber, its pages filled with notes and observations written in different handwritings and different inks, suggesting contributions from many students over many years. The most recent entries are dated several years ago, written by students whose names you recognize from trophy cases and honor rolls, confirming that this chamber has traditionally been discovered by Hogwarts' most accomplished and trustworthy pupils. Reading through the journal entries, you learn that this chamber was created by the founders as a repository of advanced magical knowledge, intended to be discovered by students who had proven themselves worthy of accelerated education and greater magical responsibility. It's not a secret kept from the faculty, but rather a tradition maintained with their knowledge and approval, a way of identifying and nurturing students who show exceptional promise and dedication. The crystal orb at the chamber's center appears to be some kind of magical assessment device designed to evaluate not just your magical ability but your character, motivations, and readiness to handle advanced knowledge responsibly. As you approach it more closely, the orb's swirling patterns resolve into images that seem to reflect your thoughts and experiences, showing scenes from your time at Hogwarts and highlighting moments when you've demonstrated the qualities that the founders valued most highly. You see yourself refusing to participate in the cheating scheme, working to find solutions that upheld both house loyalty and personal integrity. You see moments of academic dedication when you've pushed yourself to understand difficult concepts rather than settling for superficial comprehension. You see instances of helping younger students or supporting friends through challenging times, demonstrating the kind of character that makes advanced magical knowledge safe rather than dangerous. The orb's assessment seems to conclude that you are indeed ready for what this chamber has to offer, and suddenly you understand that finding this place wasn't accidental. Your growth as a student and as a person has prepared you for this discovery, just as similar growth has prepared other exceptional students throughout Hogwarts history. A soft chime echoes through the chamber, and you realize that your presence has been registered by whatever magical systems monitor this space. Somewhere in the castle, teachers who are trusted with this secret are being notified that another student has proven themselves worthy of advanced magical education. This isn't the end of your discovery, but the beginning of opportunities you never imagined possible. As you prepare to leave the chamber and return to normal castle life, you notice that several of the artifacts seem to be glowing more brightly, as if responding to your magical signature and preparing to be available for your future study. The journal on the reading stand shows fresh pages, ready for your own observations and discoveries to be added to the centuries of student wisdom preserved here. The passage back to the fifth-floor corridor seems shorter than your journey down, as if the castle itself is eager to return you to your regular activities now that you've been introduced to its deeper secrets. The hidden doorway seals itself behind you with the same shimmering illusion that concealed it, leaving no trace of your discovery except for the profound sense of excitement and responsibility that now fills your heart. The medieval wizard in the portrait offers you a conspiratorial wink as you pass, his painted expression conveying approval and anticipation for what you'll make of this opportunity. You realize that he's probably been pointing toward that hidden door for decades, waiting for students worthy of seeing what lay beyond it. Walking back through the familiar corridors of Hogwarts, everything looks the same but feels completely different. You're still the same first-year student who went for a simple walk an hour ago, but now you carry the knowledge that your magical education extends far beyond classroom lectures and assigned homework. You've been identified as someone capable of handling advanced knowledge and greater responsibility, someone who can be trusted with secrets that have been preserved for centuries. The weight of this discovery settles over you like an invisible cloak of opportunity and obligation. You understand now that Hogwarts has been watching you, evaluating your choices and character, preparing to offer you educational opportunities that most students never know exist. The question now is what you'll do with this knowledge and how you'll prove yourself worthy of the trust that has been placed in you. As you return to your common room, you see your housemates engaged in their usual activities, study groups and casual conversations, and the comfortable routines of magical school life. None of them seem to notice any change in you, which is probably for the best. This discovery feels too important and too personal to share casually, at least until you understand more about what it means and what opportunities it might create. That night, As you lie in your dormitory bed, listening to the peaceful sounds of sleeping castle, you stare at the ceiling and contemplate the magical chamber hidden beneath Hogwarts foundation. Tomorrow will bring regular classes and normal first-year concerns, but now you know that your real magical education has only just begun. Fear courses through your veins like ice water as you realize, 3 days after discovering the hidden chamber, that you've uncovered something that powerful forces want to keep secret, and your investigation has attracted attention from those who would use this ancient knowledge for purposes far darker than educational advancement. The realization hits you during what should have been a routine visit to the chamber during your free period. But the moment you step through the shimmering doorway, you know that something has fundamentally changed in the magical sanctuary that had felt so safe and welcoming just days before. The chamber's atmosphere feels different immediately, charged with tension and watchful energy that makes your skin crawl with apprehension. The crystal orb at the center of the room, which had pulsed with warm, welcoming light during your first visit, now swirls with darker colors that seem to warn of approaching danger. The artifacts in their wall alcoves appear dimmed, as if some malevolent presence has been draining their magical energy or corrupting the protective enchantments that have kept this place safe for centuries. Your enhanced magical senses, which have been growing stronger with each day of intensive spell work and potion brewing, detect traces of foreign magic lingering in the air like an unpleasant scent that doesn't belong in this sacred space. Someone else has been here, someone whose magical signature feels wrong and invasive, like a discordant note in what should be a harmonious magical symphony. The leather-bound journal that chronicles student discoveries and observations lies open on its reading stand, but new entries have appeared since your last visit, written in handwriting you don't recognize, and using ink that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. The words themselves make your heart pound with a mixture of anger and fear as you realize what you're reading. The chamber contains exactly what we suspected. One entry reads in spidery script that seems to move slightly when you're not looking directly at it. The founders' original magical theories, preserved in their purest form, along with artifacts that could revolutionize magical education or serve far more ambitious purposes. The recent student discovery provides perfect cover for our own investigation. Another entry, written in different handwriting but equally disturbing in its implications, details specific artifacts and their potential uses in ways that have nothing to do with learning and everything to do with power and control. The communication devices could be modified to influence rather than simply connect minds. The time turners offer possibilities for historical manipulation that the Ministry has never imagined. Most importantly, the Founders' personal items retain magical signatures that could be used to access other hidden chambers throughout the castle. Your hands shake as you continue reading, each entry revealing more about a conspiracy that goes far beyond simple theft or mischief. These people, whoever they are, have been systematically studying the chamber's contents and planning to exploit them for purposes that would horrify the founders who created this sanctuary for educational excellence. They're not just after individual artifacts, but seeking to understand and corrupt the entire magical framework that makes Hogwarts special. The most chilling entry describes plans to recruit unwitting students as accomplices, using their legitimate access to advanced materials as cover for far more sinister activities. The first year who discovered the chamber shows promise. The spidery handwriting notes with calculated coldness. Young students are easily manipulated when they believe they're being offered special privileges or recognition. We can use their desire to belong and excel to make them complicit in our broader objectives. This revelation hits you like a physical blow. The understanding that your discovery has been monitored and that you've been identified as a potential tool in whatever conspiracy is unfolding around you. The excitement and pride you felt at being recognized for your magical potential now feels tainted and dangerous, as if your very strengths are being weaponized against the institution you've come to love. Worse still, you realize that other students are probably in similar danger. If conspirators are willing to manipulate first years who've discovered the chamber, they're probably targeting anyone who shows exceptional magical ability or moral character, using their very virtues against them in service of darker purposes. The sound of footsteps in the passage above sends your heart into overdrive, the approaching voices carrying tones of authority and cold calculation that confirm your worst fears about who might be behind this conspiracy. You quickly close the journal and look around the chamber for somewhere to hide, but the circular space offers limited concealment, especially if the people approaching know exactly what they're looking for. The student should be here soon. says a voice that carries the cultured tones of someone educated in magical theory, but corrupted by ambition and disregard for ethical boundaries. First years are wonderfully predictable in their eagerness to explore and learn. We can use that enthusiasm to our advantage. And if they prove less cooperative than anticipated, asks another voice, this one younger but equally cold in its implications, then we'll need to ensure their silence in other ways. Comes the chilling response. The greater good sometimes requires individual sacrifices, and we can't allow sentimentality about student welfare to interfere with objectives this important. The casual way they discuss threatening a student, threatening you, makes your blood run cold with the realization that you're dealing with people who view human beings as expendable resources rather than individuals deserving protection and respect. These aren't misguided students planning harmless pranks, but adults engaged in serious criminal conspiracy that could endanger the entire Hogwarts community. You manage to squeeze yourself into a narrow space between two of the wall alcoves, pressing back against ancient stone and trying to control your breathing as the footsteps reach the hidden doorway and begin descending toward the chamber. The magical artifacts around you seem to pulse with agitation, their own protective enchantments responding to the presence of people who mean them and their sanctuary harm. 3 figures enter the chamber, their faces partially concealed by hoods, but their bearing suggesting a combination of magical education and moral corruption that makes them far more dangerous than ordinary criminals. They move through the space with familiarity that suggests they've been studying it for much longer than the few days since your discovery, planning and preparing for whatever they intend to accomplish here. The crystal orb is the key to everything. The first voice explains to their companions, approaching the central pedestal with reverence that would be appropriate if their intentions weren't so clearly malevolent. It doesn't just assess students for worthiness, it actually connects to the magical framework that governs all of Hogwarts. With the right modifications, we could use it to influence the castle's protective enchantments, to make certain areas accessible while hiding our activities from detection. The implications of this statement are staggering. They're not just planning to steal artifacts or corrupt individual students, they're attempting to compromise the fundamental magical systems that keep Hogwarts safe and functional. The protective enchantments that prevent unauthorized access, the magical monitoring that alerts teachers to dangerous situations, the very foundations of magical security that allow thousands of students to live and learn safely, all of it could be compromised if these conspirators succeed in their plans. What about the faculty? Asks the younger voice, presumably someone less experienced in whatever conspiracy they're part of. Surely Dumbledore and the other teachers will notice if the castle's magical systems are being tampered with. The beauty of our approach is that we're not fighting the castle's magic, we're working with it, explains the leader with obvious pride in their cleverness. By using the Founder's own artifacts and understanding their original intentions, we can make changes that appear to be natural evolution rather than external manipulation. The faculty will notice improvements in magical efficiency and security without realizing that we're the ones controlling those improvements. This revelation makes your stomach turn, with the understanding that these people aren't just powerful enough to threaten students, they're sophisticated enough to deceive some of the most accomplished witches and wizards in the magical world. If they can fool Hogwarts faculty into believing their manipulations are beneficial improvements, they could maintain their conspiracy indefinitely while using the school's resources and reputation to advance whatever larger agenda they're serving. From your hiding place, you watch helplessly as they begin examining artifacts with the calculating expertise of people who understand magical theory but have abandoned any pretense of using that knowledge ethically. They handle the Founder's personal items with casual disrespect, treating priceless historical artifacts as tools for their own advancement rather than treasures to be preserved and protected. The time turners will need to be modified first, the leader continues, lifting one of the delicate magical instruments with hands that show no appreciation for its historical significance or potential dangers. We need to establish temporal monitoring capabilities before we attempt any major changes to the castle's magical framework. If something goes wrong, we'll need the ability to reverse our modifications and try different approaches. The casual way they discuss time manipulation, one of the most dangerous and heavily regulated forms of magic, confirms that you're dealing with criminals who have no regard for the laws and ethical principles that govern magical society. Time turners are restricted by the Ministry of Magic for excellent reasons, and the idea of using them for unauthorized magical experimentation represents exactly the kind of reckless behavior that has led to magical disasters throughout history. Your heart pounds so loudly that you're afraid they might hear it as you realize the full scope of what you've stumbled into. This isn't just a threat to Hogwarts, but potentially to the entire magical community if these conspirators succeed in gaining control over one of the most important magical institutions in the wizarding world. The leader approaches your hiding spot while examining a complex magical instrument, and for a terrifying moment, you think you've been discovered. But they're focused on the artifact rather than searching for hidden observers, discussing its potential modifications with their companions while standing close enough that you can see the cold calculation in their partially visible features. The communication devices present the most interesting possibilities, they murmur, turning the magical instrument to catch light from the chamber's enchanted ceiling. Imagine being able to influence the thoughts and decisions of key faculty members or to monitor student conversations throughout the castle. The information gathering potential alone would justify this entire operation. This statement crystallizes the true horror of what they're planning. They're not just seeking to steal magical artifacts or compromise castle security. They're preparing to turn Hogwarts into a surveillance state where privacy and free thought become impossible. The idea of teachers and students living under constant magical monitoring, their thoughts and conversations subject to manipulation by hidden conspirators, represents a complete perversion of everything that makes Hogwarts special. As they continue their examination and planning, you realize that staying hidden won't be enough to stop them. Even if you escape detection and make it back to the castle proper, who would believe a first-year student's claims about a sophisticated magical conspiracy? And even if you could convince someone to investigate, these conspirators are clearly powerful and clever enough to cover their tracks and present themselves as legitimate researchers or concerned alumni. The sound of additional footsteps in the passage above indicates that more people are arriving, confirming that this conspiracy involves more participants than just the 3 currently in the chamber. Your situation is becoming more dangerous by the minute, and you realize that your window for escape is rapidly closing. Our colleague arrives, the leader says with satisfaction as a 4th figure descends into the chamber. I trust you've made progress on the external preparations? Everything is in place. The newcomer reports with the confidence of someone accustomed to carrying out complex, illegal operations. The ministry contacts have been cultivated, the media relationships established, the financial backing secured. When we're ready to move to the next phase, we'll have all the resources and political cover necessary to consolidate our control. This revelation expands the scope of the conspiracy beyond anything you had imagined. These aren't just rogue magical practitioners working in isolation. They're part of a larger organization with connections to the Ministry of Magic, influence over magical media, and access to significant financial resources. The implications for magical society as a whole are staggering if people with this level of power and organization are willing to target and corrupt magical education. As they begin discussing specific timelines and operational details, you realize that you're witnessing planning for what amounts to a magical coup, using Hogwarts as both a testing ground and a power base for broader political objectives. The safety of every student and teacher in the castle depends on stopping them, but the resources and connections they've described make the task seem impossible for anyone, let alone a first-year student who stumbled into their conspiracy by accident. The chamber that had felt like a sanctuary of learning and opportunity just days ago now feels like a trap closing around you, filled with people whose magical knowledge serves only their own ambition and whose willingness to threaten children reveals the depth of their moral corruption. The artifacts that had seemed to welcome your curiosity and dedication now appear vulnerable to exploitation by people who see magical knowledge as a weapon rather than a gift. Your mind races as you try to figure out how to escape without being detected and how to warn someone in authority about what you've discovered, knowing that the conspiracy's connections to the ministry and magical media make it unclear who can be trusted with this information. The weight of responsibility for potentially thousands of lives settles on your shoulders like a crushing burden that no 11-year-old should have to bear. Relief floods through you like warm sunlight breaking through storm clouds as you discover that Hogwarts itself has been preparing students for this exact moment, and that the castle's greatest protection has always been the unity of its houses working together against threats that would corrupt the magical education and community that makes this place sacred. The revelation comes just when your situation seems most hopeless, trapped in the hidden chamber while conspirators plan their assault on everything you've come to love about the wizarding world. The crystal orb at the chamber's center suddenly blazes with brilliant light that forces the conspirators to shield their eyes and step back from their examination of the Founder's artifacts. But the light doesn't hurt you at all, instead filling you with warmth and confidence that makes you understand that the chamber's protective enchantments have been activated by the presence of people with malevolent intentions. "What's happening?" demands the leader of the conspiracy, their voice losing its calm authority and revealing panic as magical alarms begin echoing through the chamber. The security systems weren't supposed to activate until we'd completed our modifications. "Someone's here," hisses the younger conspirator, pulling out their wand and scanning the chamber for hidden observers. "Someone's been watching us, listening to our plans." The magical artifacts in their wall alcoves begin glowing with protective energy, creating a network of defensive enchantments that fills the chamber with power dedicated to preserving the Founder's legacy against those who would corrupt it. The ancient magic recognizes the difference between students seeking knowledge and criminals seeking power, responding accordingly to protect what the Founders created for educational purposes. But the most amazing part of this magical response is the way it seems to be communicating beyond the chamber itself, sending signals throughout Hogwarts that alert the right people to the danger threatening the school's most precious secrets. You can feel the castle's magical framework awakening, centuries-old protective systems coming online to defend against the kind of threat the Founders always knew might eventually arise. The sound of many footsteps approaching through the passage above confirms that help is on the way, but these aren't the heavy boots of additional conspirators. These are the lighter, quicker steps of people who belong at Hogwarts, people who've been trusted with the castle's deepest secrets and who've been preparing for this moment throughout their magical education. "Students," comes a familiar voice from the passage, and your heart soars with recognition of your head of house, their tone carrying authority and protective determination that makes you feel safer than you have since discovering the conspiracy. Students and faculty responding to the chamber's distress signal. The conspirators realize immediately that their operation has been compromised beyond recovery, but instead of surrendering or attempting to negotiate, they become more dangerous in their desperation. The leader pulls out a wand that radiates dark magic, clearly prepared to use whatever force necessary to escape or eliminate witnesses to their activities. "We're not going down without accomplishing something," they snarl, pointing their wand toward the crystal orb with obvious intention to destroy or corrupt it, rather than allow it to remain beyond their control. "If we can't have these resources, we'll make sure no one else can either." But before they can cast whatever destructive spell they're planning, the chamber fills with students and faculty who've been secretly connected to its protection for years. Your head of house leads the group, but you're amazed to see students from all 4 houses, representing every year level from 3rd years to 7th years, all of them moving with the coordination and confidence that comes from extensive preparation and training. These aren't just random Hogwarts community members who happen to respond to magical alarms. These are people who've been specifically chosen and prepared to defend the school against exactly this kind of threat, a hidden network of protectors who've been operating under the faculty's guidance while maintaining complete secrecy about their activities and mission. "Lower your wands," commands Professor McGonagall as she enters the chamber with the distinctive authority that has made her one of Hogwarts' most respected faculty members. You are surrounded, outnumbered, and operating against magical protections that have been refined over 1,000 years of defending this institution. The conspirators clearly recognize her and understand the futility of their situation, but their desperation makes them unpredictable and potentially more dangerous than if they were thinking clearly about their options. The leader's wand remains trained on the crystal orb, while the others position themselves defensively, obviously prepared to fight their way out if negotiation or intimidation doesn't work. "You don't understand what you're interfering with," the leader declares with the fanatical conviction of someone who's convinced themselves that their criminal activities serve some higher purpose. "The magical world is changing, and institutions like Hogwarts need to evolve or become irrelevant. We're trying to preserve magical education by modernizing it." By corrupting it, Professor McGonagall responds with the cold precision that has intimidated generations of students who thought they could fool her with elaborate excuses for their misbehavior. By turning tools of learning into instruments of control and surveillance, by threatening children who trusted you with their safety and education. The confrontation that follows isn't the dramatic magical battle that you might expect from adventure stories, but rather a demonstration of why Hogwarts has survived and thrived for 1,000 years, despite facing numerous threats to its mission and community. The student defenders don't attack or threaten the conspirators, but instead work together to contain and neutralize the threat they represent, using defensive magic and collaborative tactics that showcase everything wonderful about magical education. Students from different houses coordinate their spells with the precision that comes from extensive practice, each person contributing their unique magical strengths to create a collective defense that's more powerful than any individual could achieve alone. Gryffindors provide courage and direct action, Hufflepuffs offer loyalty and supportive magic, Ravenclaws contribute strategic thinking and complex spellwork, while Slytherins add cunning tactics and resource management that ensures nothing important is overlooked. The conspiracy members find themselves surrounded by magical barriers that prevent escape while simultaneously protecting them from harm, demonstrating that Hogwarts defenders are more interested in justice than revenge. The protective enchantments disable their wands without injuring them, while containment spells ensure they can't disapparate or use other methods to avoid facing consequences for their actions. "How did you know?" demands the younger conspirator as their plans collapse around them. "We were so careful, so thorough in our preparations. No one should have been able to detect our activities until it was too late to stop us." Because Hogwarts chooses its defenders as carefully as it chooses its students, explains a 7th-year Ravenclaw whose obvious intelligence and maturity suggest she's been part of this protective network for several years. The same magical assessment that identifies students worthy of advanced education also identifies those capable of protecting what makes this place special. You realize with growing amazement that the Crystal Orb's evaluation of your character wasn't just about academic potential but about your suitability for joining this hidden network of student defenders. Your discovery of the chamber wasn't accidental but part of a careful selection process that's been operating for centuries, identifying young people who combine magical ability with the moral character necessary to protect rather than exploit advanced knowledge. Every generation of Hogwarts students includes a few individuals who show exceptional promise, not just as scholars but as guardians of magical education, continues your head of house, speaking directly to you with obvious pride and approval. The chamber reveals itself to such students as both a reward for their dedication and a test of their readiness to accept greater responsibilities. The implications of this revelation are staggering. You haven't just stumbled into a conspiracy by accident. You've been carefully evaluated and selected to join a tradition of student guardians that stretches back to the founders themselves. The magical knowledge and artifacts in the chamber aren't just educational resources but tools for protecting Hogwarts against threats like the one you've just helped neutralize. As Ministry officials arrive to take the conspirators into custody, you learn more about the sophisticated threat that Hogwarts has been facing and the equally sophisticated defense network that's been developed to counter it. The conspiracy involved people with connections throughout magical society, from ministry employees to international magical organizations, all united by their desire to control rather than serve magical education. This wasn't their first attempt, Professor McGonagall explains as the immediate crisis winds down and the chamber's protective enchantments return to their normal passive state. For decades, various groups have tried to infiltrate or corrupt Hogwarts, always believing they could improve upon the founders' vision by imposing their own agenda and values. The student defenders begin the process of checking the chamber's artifacts and protective systems for any damage or corruption caused by the conspirators' presence, working with the efficiency and expertise that comes from extensive training in magical preservation and security. Their knowledge of the chamber's contents and systems far exceeds anything covered in standard Hogwarts curriculum, confirming that membership in this protective network includes access to advanced magical education that prepares students for responsibilities far beyond normal academic achievement. "Will I be expected to join them?" you ask your head of house, gesturing toward the older students who are completing their security assessment with obvious competence and dedication. That choice is entirely yours. They respond with the kind of gentle guidance that helps students make important decisions without feeling pressured or manipulated. The chamber revealed itself to you because you've demonstrated the qualities we look for in potential guardians, but accepting that role requires commitment and sacrifice that not everyone is prepared to make. They explain that membership in the Guardian Network requires maintaining absolute secrecy about activities and knowledge that could be dangerous if revealed to the wrong people, it means accepting responsibility for protecting fellow students and faculty members who may never know they're being defended. Most importantly, it means committing to the founder's vision of magical education as a force for good in the world, even when that commitment requires personal sacrifice. Take time to consider what this means. Your head of house advises as the chamber is secured and the crisis officially resolved. Being chosen for advanced magical education is an honor, but being chosen to defend that education is a calling that will shape the rest of your life. As you make your way back through the hidden passage to the regular castle corridors, accompanied by students and faculty who've just demonstrated the kind of cooperation and dedication that makes Hogwarts truly magical, you reflect on how much your understanding of your school and your place in it has changed over the past few days. You came to Hogwarts as a nervous first year hoping to learn magic and find where you belonged, and you've discovered that belonging means more than just academic success or house loyalty. It means becoming part of something greater than yourself, something that connects you to centuries of students and faculty who've dedicated themselves to preserving and protecting magical education for future generations. The common room feels different when you return to it that evening, filled with housemates who are engaged in their usual activities without any awareness of the drama that's been unfolding beneath their feet. Study groups and casual conversations continue normally, but now you see them with new appreciation for the safety and security that allows such ordinary magical school life to flourish. Your dormitory room looks exactly the same as always, but everything feels changed by your new understanding of the responsibilities and opportunities that come with being recognized as someone capable of protecting what you love. The other first years in your year are sleeping peacefully, trusting that Hogwarts will keep them safe while they focus on learning and growing and discovering their magical abilities. As you settle into your own bed and contemplate the decision you'll need to make about joining the Guardian Network, you feel a deep sense of gratitude for the institution that has not only welcomed you as a student but identified you as someone worthy of its most sacred trusts. The weight of that recognition is both inspiring and daunting, but you realize that the very fact that you're taking it seriously proves that the selection process works exactly as the founders intended. Tomorrow will bring regular classes and normal first-year concerns, but now you know that your real magical education extends far beyond textbooks and examinations. You've been invited to join a tradition of service and protection that turns magical knowledge into a force for preserving everything that makes the wizarding world worth defending, and that invitation represents the greatest honor any Hogwarts student could receive. 2 months into your Hogwarts education, you're beginning to understand that the most important magic you'll learn here isn't found in textbooks or demonstrated in formal lessons, but discovered in the daily moments of wonder, friendship, and personal growth that fill every corner of castle life with possibilities you never imagined before receiving your acceptance letter. This realization comes not through any single dramatic revelation, but through the gradual accumulation of experiences that transform your understanding of what magic really means and how it connects to every aspect of life in the wizarding world. Your morning begins in the Great Hall, where the enchanted ceiling shows a perfect autumn sky filled with golden light that makes everything feel warm and welcoming. Despite the early hour, the 4 house tables buzz with conversations about upcoming assignments, Quidditch tryouts, and weekend plans, creating an atmosphere of community and shared purpose that makes even the most challenging academic requirements feel manageable when faced together with friends and housemates. The mail delivery brings a flurry of excitement as owls sweep through the hall carrying letters from home, packages of treats from caring relatives, and the occasional howler that provides entertainment for everyone except its unfortunate recipient. Your own family's letters have become treasured connections to the non-magical world you left behind, but increasingly you find that explaining your magical education requires creating 2 different versions of your experiences, one for people who can understand references to potions and charms, and another for those who need everything translated into non-magical terms. Professor Flitwick's Charms classroom has become one of your favorite places in the castle, not just because of the subject matter, but because of the professor's infectious enthusiasm for magic in all its forms. Today's lesson focuses on the levitation charm, but Professor Flitwick approaches it as more than just a practical skill to be mastered through repetition and memorization. Magic, he explains from his position atop a stack of books that brings him to proper teaching height, is not simply about making objects float or changing their properties. It's about understanding the fundamental connections between intention, emotion, and reality. When you successfully levitate a feather, you're not just performing a mechanical action, you're participating in the same creative force that shapes the entire magical world. His words resonate deeply as you practice the wand movements and incantations that have become increasingly familiar over your weeks of study. The feather on your desk responds to your focused intention with smooth, controlled movement that feels less like commanding an object and more like dancing with the magical energy that permeates everything at Hogwarts. "Excellent work," Professor Flitwick comments as he observes your progress, his praise carrying the weight of someone who truly understands the complexities of magical theory and recognizes genuine achievement when he sees it. You're not just making the feather float, you're developing the kind of intuitive understanding that will serve you well in advanced magical studies. The Transition to Transfiguration class provides a completely different but equally enriching magical learning experience. Professor McGonagall's classroom embodies the precision and discipline that her subject requires, but beneath her stern exterior lies a deep passion for the transformative power of magic when applied with proper knowledge and respect for its capabilities. Transfiguration is perhaps the most complex and dangerous magic you will learn at Hogwarts. She begins today's lesson with her characteristic directness. It requires not only technical skill but also complete concentration and absolute respect for the fundamental laws that govern how magic interacts with physical reality. Today's assignment involves transforming matches into needles, building on skills developed over previous weeks of practice with increasingly complex transformations. But Professor McGonagall approaches each lesson as an opportunity to understand the deeper principles that make such magical transformations possible, rather than simply memorizing the specific techniques required for particular spells. When you successfully transfigure an object, she explains while demonstrating the precise wand movements required, you are temporarily altering its essential nature while maintaining its fundamental magical signature. This requires understanding not just what you want to achieve, but why such transformations are possible and how they fit into the broader framework of magical lore. Your match transforms into a sharp silver needle on the third attempt, earning you a rare nod of approval from Professor McGonagall that feels more valuable than any formal grade could be. The success comes not from mechanical repetition, but from genuine understanding of the magical principles involved, developed through careful study and attentive practice over many weeks of consistent effort. The contrast between different magical subjects becomes even more apparent during potions class in the dungeons, where Professor Snape's demanding standards and intimidating presence create an atmosphere of focused concentration that brings out either the best or worst in every student depending on their preparation and attitude. Potions, Professor Snape intones with his characteristic dramatic flair, requires precision, patience, and respect for ingredients that can be beneficial or deadly depending on how they are combined and prepared. There is no room for carelessness or casual attention in this classroom. Today's lesson involves brewing a cure for boils, which sounds simple but requires careful timing, precise measurements, and constant attention to temperature and ingredient interactions. The magical theory behind potion making fascinates you more with each lesson as you begin to understand how different magical substances interact to create effects that neither could achieve independently. Your cauldron produces the perfect orange color that indicates successful completion of the potion, earning you another of Professor Snape's rare compliments disguised as neutral observation. "Adequate work," he says while examining your results, which you've learned to interpret as significant praise coming from him. The greenhouse environment of herbology class provides yet another perspective on magical education, where Professor Sprout's nurturing approach and obvious love for magical plants creates an atmosphere of growth and discovery that perfectly matches her subject matter. Working with magical plants requires patience, intuition, and respect for living things that have their own magical properties and personalities. Every magical plant has its own requirements and characteristics, Professor Sprout explains as you carefully tend to young mandrakes whose cries could be fatal if they were mature enough. Success in herbology comes not from forcing plants to conform to your expectations, but from learning to work with their natural magical properties. The hands-on nature of plant care appeals to you in ways that pure academic study cannot match, providing tangible results that you can see and nurture over time. The magical plants respond to careful attention and genuine care, teaching lessons about patience and respect that extend far beyond botanical knowledge. Defense against the dark arts presents perhaps the most complex ethical and practical challenges of any subject in your curriculum, requiring not just technical magical skills but also moral judgment about when and how defensive magic should be used. Professor Quirrell's nervous demeanor initially seems inappropriate for such an important subject, but his knowledge of defensive theory proves extensive despite his apparent anxiety about practical application. Defensive magic, he explains while demonstrating basic protective charms, requires not just the ability to cast appropriate spells, but also the wisdom to recognize when magical defense is necessary and proportionate to the threat being faced. The subject matter forces you to consider aspects of the magical world that your other classes rarely address directly, acknowledging that magic can be used for harmful purposes and that responsible magical education must include preparation for protecting oneself and others from such misuse. History of magic, despite Professor Bin's soporific teaching style, provides essential context for understanding how magical society has developed over centuries and why current magical laws and customs exist. The subject could be fascinating if presented with more energy and engagement, but even Professor Bin's monotonous lectures contain information that helps you understand your place in the broader sweep of magical history. Your free periods have become opportunities for independent exploration and study that extend your formal education in directions that match your personal interests and curiosity. The library's vast collection includes resources on every conceivable magical topic, from basic spell theory to advanced magical research that won't be covered in classes for years to come. Madame Pincy, despite her intimidating reputation as a fierce protector of library materials, proves helpful when approached respectfully and with genuine interest in learning. Her recommendations for additional reading materials have enhanced your understanding of subjects covered in formal classes while introducing you to areas of magical knowledge that spark new interests and ambitions. Reading beyond your required assignments shows intellectual curiosity that will serve you well throughout your magical education, she observes while helping you locate materials on advanced charms theory. Students who limit themselves to minimum requirements miss opportunities to discover where their true magical talents and interests lie. The common room study groups that form naturally among housemates create additional learning opportunities that complement formal classroom instruction while building the friendships and collaborative relationships that make magical education truly meaningful. Working together on challenging assignments teaches you not just academic content but also how to explain difficult concepts to others and how to learn from classmates who approach problems differently than you do. Teaching someone else is often the best way to deepen your own understanding, observes a fifth-year prefect who regularly helps organize study sessions for younger students. When you can explain a magical concept clearly enough for someone else to understand and apply it, you know that you've truly mastered the material yourself. Your academic progress exceeds your own expectations as you adapt to the intensive pace and high standards of magical education, but more importantly, you're developing the kind of deep understanding and genuine enthusiasm for learning that will sustain you through increasingly challenging material in years to come. The magical skills you're acquiring extend far beyond the specific spells and techniques covered in formal lessons, encompassing ways of thinking and perceiving that transform your relationship with the world around you. You're learning to see magical possibilities in ordinary situations, to understand the connections between seemingly unrelated phenomena, and to approach problems with creativity and resourcefulness that draws on everything you've learned across all your subjects. Evening meals in the Great Hall provide opportunities to discuss the day's lessons with students from other houses, comparing different approaches to similar assignments and learning how the same magical principles can be understood and applied from multiple perspectives. These inter-house conversations help you appreciate the diversity of magical thinking while reinforcing your own house's particular strengths and values. Your professors have begun to notice your consistent effort and genuine engagement with their subjects, offering encouragement and additional challenges that help you reach your full potential rather than settling for minimum acceptable performance. Their recognition feels more meaningful than grades or formal achievements because it acknowledges not just what you've accomplished, but how you've approached the learning process itself. As you settle into your dormitory bed at the end of another full day of magical education, you reflect on how much your understanding of magic and your place in the magical world has deepened since arriving at Hogwarts. You're not just learning spells and magical theory, but developing the kind of comprehensive magical education that will prepare you for whatever path you choose to follow after graduation. The sounds of the castle at night, from creaking portraits to distant footsteps in corridors, have become comforting reminders that you're part of an institution dedicated to nurturing magical talent and helping young witches and wizards discover their full potential. Your magical education is progressing exactly as it should, building foundations that will support increasingly advanced study while fostering the personal growth that makes magical knowledge meaningful and beneficial rather than merely powerful. Your magical abilities are growing stronger with each passing day. But so are the challenges that test not just your spells and potion-making skills, but your character, judgment, and understanding of what it truly means to be a responsible member of the magical community. This deeper level of learning becomes apparent during your 3rd month at Hogwarts, when the initial excitement of mastering basic magic gives way to more complex questions about how magical power should be used and what obligations come with the privilege of magical education. The transformation begins during an advanced charms workshop that Professor Flitwick offers to students who have demonstrated exceptional aptitude and dedication in his regular classes. The invitation itself represents recognition of your progress, but the content of these sessions reveals magical techniques and theories that go far beyond anything covered in standard first-year curriculum. Advanced magic. Professor Flitwick explains to the small group of selected students gathered in his private study, requires not just technical proficiency but also emotional maturity and ethical understanding. The spells we'll explore today can be beneficial or harmful depending on the intentions and wisdom of the person casting them. The first spell he demonstrates is a modified version of the cheering charm, but instead of simply making someone feel happier, this advanced variant can actually influence their decision-making processes and emotional responses in ways that could be used to manipulate rather than help. The ethical implications become immediately apparent as Professor Flitwick explains the careful safeguards and moral considerations that must guide anyone who masters such powerful magic. Every witch and wizard must eventually grapple with the question of how to use their abilities responsibly, he continues, his usually cheerful demeanor taking on a more serious tone. Magic gives us power to change the world around us, but that power becomes meaningless or even dangerous unless it's guided by wisdom, compassion, and respect for the autonomy of others. Your practice with the advanced charm produces results that surprise even Professor Flitwick, as your casting not only achieves the intended magical effect, but does so with a level of precision and control that suggests natural talent for this type of complex spell work. However, the success brings with it a deeper understanding of why such magic requires careful ethical consideration. Excellent work, Professor Flitwick acknowledges, but I want you to reflect on what you've just accomplished. You've demonstrated the ability to influence another person's emotional state and decision-making process. What responsibilities does that ability create? How will you ensure that such power is only used in ways that truly benefit others rather than serving your own convenience or preferences? These questions follow you throughout the day as you attend regular classes and interact with fellow students, making you newly aware of how many opportunities arise for using magical abilities in ways that could be helpful or harmful depending on your motivations and judgment. The power to influence others through magic creates constant moral choices that most people in the non-magical world never have to confront. Potions class presents similar ethical challenges when Professor Snape introduces advanced brewing techniques that can create substances with profound effects on human behavior and perception. The confusion concoction you're learning to brew could be used to help someone overcome mental barriers that prevent learning, but it could just as easily be used to make someone more susceptible to manipulation or deception. Potion making. Professor Snape intones with his characteristic intensity, reveals the true character of every student. The same knowledge and skills that can heal can also harm, and the difference lies entirely in the choices made by the person holding the ladle. Your brewing produces a perfect batch of the concoction, earning you one of Professor Snape's rare nods of approval, but also prompting him to assign you additional reading on the ethical implications of mind-affecting potions. The materials he suggests explore historical cases where well-intentioned magical practitioners made choices that seemed reasonable at the time but led to unintended consequences that harmed the people they were trying to help. Power without wisdom is dangerous, he observes while examining your work. But wisdom without the courage to act when action is needed is merely academic exercise. You must learn to balance both qualities if you wish to make meaningful contributions to magical society. The library research you undertake reveals stories of magical practitioners throughout history who faced similar ethical dilemmas, some making choices that enhanced their communities while others making decisions that caused lasting damage despite good intentions. The patterns that emerge from these historical examples provide guidance for navigating your own moral development, but they also emphasize that each situation requires individual judgment rather than simple application of predetermined rules. Your Transfiguration studies with Professor McGonagall introduce theoretical frameworks for understanding the deeper principles that govern all magical transformation, both of objects and of the people who practice magic. The advanced concepts she shares during office hours reveal connections between different magical disciplines that aren't apparent when studying each subject in isolation. Magic is fundamentally about transformation, she explains while demonstrating complex transfiguration techniques that won't be covered in regular classes for several more years. We transform objects, we transform our environment, and ultimately we transform ourselves through the practice of magic. Understanding these connections helps you develop a more comprehensive and effective approach to magical learning. The practical exercises she assigns require not just technical skill but also creative problem-solving and intuitive understanding of how different magical principles can be combined to achieve desired outcomes. Your success with these challenges indicates that your magical education is progressing beyond rote memorization toward the kind of integrated understanding that characterizes truly accomplished magical practitioners. Defense against the dark arts takes on new dimensions when Professor Quirrell introduces concepts about protecting not just yourself but others who may be vulnerable to magical attack or manipulation. The protective spells you're learning require genuine concern for other people's welfare, making them impossible to cast effectively unless your motivations are genuinely altruistic. Defensive magic draws its power from the desire to protect, Professor Quirrell explains despite his nervous demeanor, but it requires precise understanding of what you're defending against and why such protection is necessary. Overreaction can be as harmful as insufficient response, so you must develop judgment as well as technique. Your practice sessions with protective charms reveal an unexpected aptitude for this type of magic, with spells achieving greater effectiveness when you focus on specific people you want to protect, rather than abstract concepts of defense. The emotional connection seems to strengthen the magical effect, providing practical demonstration of how personal relationships and caring enhance magical abilities. Herbology class with Professor Sprout introduces advanced plant care that requires understanding not just proper techniques, but also the individual personalities and needs of different magical species. Some plants respond to firm direction, while others require gentle encouragement, and learning to read these differences develops intuition and empathy that enhance all aspects of magical practice. Magical plants teach us about patience, observation, and respect for other forms of consciousness, Professor Sprout explains while demonstrating proper care for temperamental venomous tentacula. The skills you develop working with magical plants will serve you well in all your relationships, both with other magical creatures and with fellow witches and wizards. Your success with difficult plant species earns you opportunities to work with specimens that aren't usually introduced until much later in magical education, providing hands-on experience with rare magical flora that deepens your understanding of the complex relationships between all living things in the magical world. History of magic begins to make more sense as you develop context for understanding how past events influence current magical society and why certain laws and customs exist. Professor Bin's lectures remain soporific, but independent research reveals fascinating connections between historical developments and contemporary magical practices. The patterns you discover in magical history help you understand that many current ethical dilemmas have been faced by previous generations of magical practitioners, and their solutions provide guidance for navigating similar challenges in your own time. Learning from past mistakes becomes as important as celebrating past achievements in developing wisdom to guide your own magical development. Your involvement in inter-house study groups creates opportunities to learn from students with different perspectives and approaches to magical education, expanding your understanding beyond the particular strengths and values emphasized by your own house. Working collaboratively on challenging assignments teaches you how to combine different magical philosophies to achieve better results than any single approach could provide. Every house has valuable insights to contribute, observes a Ravenclaw prefect during a joint study session focused on complex transfiguration theory. Gryffindor courage helps us attempt difficult magic. Hufflepuff patience helps us perfect our technique. Ravenclaw analysis helps us understand underlying principles, and Slytherin ambition helps us push beyond comfortable limits. These collaborative learning experiences demonstrate practical applications of the unity that the Sorting Hat speaks about in its annual songs, showing how the different house qualities complement rather than compete with each other when applied to shared educational goals. Your professors begin offering you additional challenges and opportunities that indicate recognition of your exceptional progress and potential for advanced magical study. These opportunities come with increased expectations and responsibilities, but they also provide access to knowledge and experiences that will accelerate your magical development far beyond what standard curriculum alone could achieve. Professor McGonagall invites you to assist with research on advanced transfiguration applications, while Professor Flitwick offers access to his private collection of rare charms texts. Professor Snape suggests independent study projects that will develop your understanding of complex potion interactions, and even Professor Quirrell mentions opportunities for advanced defensive magic training. These invitations represent not just academic recognition, but also expressions of confidence in your character and judgment, indicating that your professors trust you with knowledge and responsibilities that require maturity beyond your years. The weight of this trust feels both inspiring and daunting, motivating you to continue growing in wisdom as well as magical ability. Your evening study sessions in the common room become opportunities to help younger students while continuing to challenge yourself with increasingly difficult material. Teaching others reinforces your own understanding while developing communication skills that will serve you well regardless of what career path you eventually choose to pursue. Explaining magic to someone who's just beginning to understand it helps you remember what it felt like to discover these concepts for the first time. You tell a first year who's struggling with basic levitation charm technique. That perspective keeps you humble and reminds you that everyone's magical journey is different. The friendships you're developing with students from all year levels and all houses create a support network that makes the challenges of advanced magical study manageable while providing different perspectives on what magical education means and how it should be applied after graduation. Your dreams have begun to include magical elements that suggest your subconscious mind is integrating magical concepts into your fundamental understanding of reality. Magic is becoming not just something you study and practice, but part of who you are, changing how you perceive and interact with the world around you. As you settle into sleep at the end of another day filled with magical learning and personal growth, you reflect on how far you've come since arriving at Hogwarts with only the most basic understanding of what magic could mean in your life. You're developing not just magical abilities, but also the wisdom, character, and sense of responsibility that will determine how those abilities are used throughout your life. The castle's nighttime sounds have become familiar and comforting, reminding you that you're part of an institution dedicated to nurturing not just magical talent, but also the moral development that makes magical power beneficial rather than dangerous. Your magical education is preparing you for challenges and opportunities that you can't yet imagine, but you're confident that the foundation being built here will support whatever path your magical journey eventually takes. A crisis at Hogwarts forces you to understand that magic is about protecting others, not just personal achievement. When a dangerous magical accident threatens not only your fellow students but also everything you've come to love about your magical education and the community that has become your true home. The incident occurs during what should have been a routine potions class, but the combination of advanced brewing techniques, volatile magical ingredients, and the unpredictable nature of magic itself creates a situation that tests every lesson you've learned about responsibility, courage, and the true purpose of magical education. The morning begins normally enough, with Professor Snape introducing the class to Felix Felicis, the luck potion whose brewing requires precise timing, perfect technique, and ingredients so rare and expensive that most students will never have the opportunity to work with them. The theoretical knowledge alone represents months of advanced study, but Professor Snape has decided that your class has demonstrated sufficient skill and maturity to attempt this legendary potion under careful supervision. Felix Felicis, Professor Snape intones with his characteristic dramatic flair, represents the pinnacle of potion-making artistry. Every ingredient must be prepared with absolute precision, every step must be executed with perfect timing, and every magical interaction must be carefully controlled. One mistake, one moment of carelessness, and the results can be catastrophic rather than beneficial. The brewing process begins smoothly, with students working in pairs to ensure careful monitoring of each step and ingredient interaction. Your partner, a talented Ravenclaw, whose theoretical knowledge complements your practical skills, helps maintain the precise temperature control and timing that the potion requires. The classroom fills with the subtle magical energy that indicates powerful potion making in progress, creating an atmosphere of focused concentration that brings out the best in everyone present. But Felix Felicis is notorious for its unpredictability during the brewing process, and what starts as a minor variation in one cauldron's color quickly escalates into a full magical emergency that threatens everyone in the classroom. The potion's interaction with a contaminated ingredient creates a magical chain reaction that spreads to adjacent cauldrons, transforming what should have been controlled potion making into a dangerous situation that could easily turn deadly. Everyone away from the cauldrons, Professor Snape commands with the authority of someone who has dealt with similar emergencies throughout his teaching career. Do not attempt to salvage your potions. The magical interactions are too unstable to predict or control safely. But the magical chain reaction continues to spread despite his immediate countermeasures, with each affected cauldron adding to the unstable magical energy that fills the classroom with dangerous vapors and unpredictable magical effects. The stone walls that normally provide perfect insulation for potion making now trap the escalating magical energy, creating a contained environment where the crisis can only grow more severe. Several students begin showing signs of magical poisoning from the contaminated vapors, their symptoms ranging from disorientation and nausea to more serious magical effects that could cause permanent damage if not treated immediately. The classroom's ventilation system, designed for normal potion fumes, proves inadequate for the volume and toxicity of the magical contamination now filling the air. The hospital wing Professor Snape directs while casting protective charms around the most severely affected students. We need to evacuate everyone immediately and seal this classroom until the magical contamination can be neutralized safely. But the magical energy has begun affecting the classroom's structural enchantments, warping the protective spells that normally make the dungeons safe for potion making and creating dangerous instabilities in the castle's magical framework. What began as a localized emergency is threatening to spread throughout the dungeons, potentially affecting other classes and common areas where hundreds of students gather daily. The evacuation becomes increasingly difficult as the magical contamination spreads into the corridor outside the classroom, forcing students and faculty to find alternative routes through parts of the castle that were never designed for emergency access. The narrow dungeon corridors, perfect for normal classroom activities, become bottlenecks that slow evacuation efforts while the magical contamination continues to spread and intensify. Your advanced charms training with Professor Flitwick suddenly becomes crucial as you realize that the protective spells you've been learning could help contain the magical contamination and protect fellow students during the evacuation. The ethical discussions about using advanced magic responsibly take on immediate practical importance as you face the choice between staying safely away from danger or using your abilities to help others who are in greater peril. I can help, you tell Professor Snape, who is working frantically to contain the magical contamination while coordinating the evacuation efforts. The protective charms Professor Flitwick taught me might be able to create safe corridors for evacuation. Professor Snape's expression shifts from stern authority to careful evaluation as he considers whether your magical abilities are sufficient for such a dangerous task, and whether allowing a first-year student to attempt advanced magic under emergency conditions represents acceptable risk or irresponsible endangerment. These are not classroom exercises, he warns, his voice carrying the weight of someone who has seen magical accidents cause permanent damage to students who overestimated their abilities. Emergency magic requires not just technical skill, but also the judgment to recognize when you're attempting something beyond your current capabilities. But the situation continues to deteriorate. As more students show signs of magical poisoning and the contamination spreads to adjacent areas of the castle, the choice becomes not whether to risk using advanced magic, but whether to accept the greater risk of allowing the emergency to continue without attempting every possible intervention. Your first protective charm creates a corridor of clean air that allows a group of affected students to reach the hospital wing safely, proving that your magical abilities are sufficient for emergency conditions and that your training with Professor Flitwick has prepared you for practical applications beyond classroom demonstrations. Excellent work, Professor Snape acknowledges, his praise carrying extra weight because it comes during a genuine crisis rather than routine classroom activities. Continue with the evacuation corridors while I work on containing the source of contamination. The magical skills you've developed through months of intensive study and ethical reflection now serve their ultimate purpose, protecting fellow students and preserving the educational environment that has nurtured your own growth and development. Each successful protective charm reinforces your understanding that magical education isn't just about personal achievement, but about preparing to serve the broader magical community when circumstances demand it. Working alongside Professor Snape and other faculty members who respond to the emergency provides insight into the sophisticated magical knowledge and experience required to handle serious magical accidents. Their coordination and expertise demonstrate the kind of professional competence that you hope to develop through continued magical education and practical experience. Magic is ultimately about service, Professor Snape explains, while working to neutralize the contaminated cauldrons that started the crisis. Personal achievement and academic recognition are meaningless unless they prepare you to protect and serve others when protection and service are needed. The magical theory you've learned in various classes comes together in practical application as you realize that containing this emergency requires not just charms work, but also understanding of potions interactions, transfiguration principles, and defense against the dark arts concepts. The integrated approach to magical education that Hogwarts provides proves its value in preparing students for complex real-world challenges. Professor McGonagall arrives with additional faculty support, her transfiguration expertise proving crucial for modifying the classroom's structural enchantments to prevent further spread of contamination. Her presence also provides coordination between different magical specialties, ensuring that everyone's efforts work together effectively rather than creating additional complications. Inter-house cooperation, she observes while directing the combined response effort, provides the same advantages during emergencies that it provides during routine educational activities. Different magical approaches and perspectives combine to create solutions that no single house or specialty could achieve independently. Students from all 4 houses volunteer to help with evacuation efforts and magical containment, demonstrating the kind of unity and mutual support that the founders envisioned when they created Hogwarts' house system. Gryffindor courage combines with Hufflepuff loyalty, Ravenclaw intelligence, and Slytherin determination to address the crisis effectively, while minimizing additional risk to anyone involved. Your own housemates provide emotional support and practical assistance that helps you maintain focus and confidence while performing advanced magic under dangerous conditions. Their presence reminds you that you're not facing this challenge alone, but as part of a community that shares responsibility for everyone's safety and welfare. This is what house loyalty really means, one of your fellow first years observes while helping maintain protective charms around evacuated students. Not just supporting each other during competitions or celebrations, but working together when people are in real danger and need real help. The crisis resolution requires several hours of intensive magical work, with faculty members and advanced students working together to neutralize the contamination, repair the damaged classroom enchantments, and ensure that all affected students receive appropriate medical attention. The collaborative effort demonstrates the kind of magical community that Hogwarts seeks to create and maintain. As the immediate danger passes and normal castle activities resume, you begin to understand the deeper significance of what you've experienced and participated in. The emergency has provided practical demonstration of why magical education emphasizes character development and ethical responsibility alongside technical skill and theoretical knowledge. Today you learn the most important lesson Hogwarts has to offer, Professor Snape tells you during a private conversation after the crisis has been resolved. Magic without purpose is merely academic exercise, but magic guided by genuine concern for others' welfare becomes a force for protection and healing that can transform communities and institutions. The recognition from faculty members and fellow students feels different from academic achievements or house points, because it acknowledges not just what you've accomplished, but how you've chosen to use your abilities when faced with genuine need. The experience has provided practical demonstration of the values that magical education seeks to instill and develop. Your parents' letter, when it arrives several days later, expresses pride in your academic progress but also concern about the dangers you've faced and the responsibilities you've accepted. Their response helps you understand that growing up means not just developing new abilities but also accepting the obligations that come with those abilities. "We're proud of you for helping others," your mother writes, "but we also want you to remember that your safety is important too. Learning when to act and when to seek help from more experienced people is as important as learning to act courageously when action is needed. The balance between courage and prudence becomes a central theme in your continued magical education as professors and older students help you understand that heroism isn't about taking unnecessary risks, but about making thoughtful decisions about when your abilities can make a meaningful difference in others' lives. Your advanced charms sessions with Professor Flitwick now include discussions about emergency applications of protective magic, while your potions work with Professor Snape incorporates safety protocols and emergency response procedures that prepare you for handling future magical accidents more effectively and safely. Experience is the best teacher, Professor Flitwick observes during one of your individual tutorials, but learning from other people's experience is safer and more efficient than learning everything through your own trial and error. That's why magical education emphasizes both theoretical knowledge and practical application under careful supervision. The relationships you've developed with fellow students across all houses deepen as you share the experience of working together during a genuine crisis. The artificial boundaries between houses seem less important when you've seen how different magical strengths and perspectives combine to create effective solutions for real problems. Your understanding of what it means to be part of the magical community expands beyond academic achievement and social activities to encompass genuine responsibility for others' welfare and protection. The privilege of magical education creates obligations that extend far beyond personal advancement or career preparation. As the term continues and you return to regular classroom activities, the lessons learned during the emergency continue to influence your approach to magical education and your relationships with fellow students and faculty members. The experience has provided practical demonstration of why character development and ethical education are as important as technical magical training. Your magical abilities continue to develop and strengthen, but now they're guided by clearer understanding of their ultimate purpose and the responsibilities that come with increasing magical power and knowledge. The crisis has provided a bridge between academic learning and real-world application that will influence your entire magical education and career. Working with students from all houses, you discover that the greatest magic comes from unity and friendship, as the bonds forged through shared challenges and mutual support prove stronger than any individual spell or potion you could master alone. This revelation crystallizes during the weeks following the classroom crisis, when the collaborative response to danger evolves into ongoing partnerships that transcend traditional house boundaries and create new possibilities for magical learning and personal growth that none of you could have achieved in isolation. The informal study groups that emerge naturally from your crisis experience bring together students with complementary magical strengths and perspectives, creating learning environments that surpass anything possible within single-house limitations. Your own advanced charms abilities combine with a Hufflepuff's patient precision in herbology, a Ravenclaw's theoretical insights in transfiguration, and a Slytherin's strategic approach to defense against the dark arts, resulting in magical understanding that none of you could have developed independently. "This is how magical research actually works," explains the Ravenclaw during one of your evening study sessions in an unused classroom that has become your group's regular meeting place. Professional magical practitioners collaborate across different specialties and backgrounds because complex magical problems require diverse approaches and perspectives that no single person can provide. The room you've claimed for these sessions reflects the collaborative nature of your learning, with materials and equipment borrowed from different departments arranged to support integrated magical study rather than isolated subject focus. Potions ingredients sit alongside charms reference books, while transfiguration practice objects share space with defense against the dark arts protective amulets, creating an environment that encourages connections between different magical disciplines. Your Hufflepuff friend demonstrates how proper plant care techniques can enhance potion effectiveness beyond anything achievable through brewing skill alone, while the Slytherin member of your group shows how strategic thinking can make defensive spells more efficient and comprehensive. Each person's contribution builds on the other's strengths, creating synergy that accelerates everyone's magical development. Individual house training is important for developing specific magical approaches, observes your Hufflepuff friend while carefully preparing rare magical herbs for a complex healing potion. But real magical mastery requires understanding how different approaches work together to create results that exceed what any single method could achieve. The collaborative projects you undertake challenge you to apply magical knowledge in ways that formal classroom assignments never could, requiring creativity, problem-solving, and adaptability that prepare you for the kind of complex magical work you'll encounter after graduation. Instead of memorizing predetermined solutions to standard problems, you're learning to develop original approaches to unique challenges. Professor McGonagall discovers your group during one of her evening rounds and, instead of dispersing you back to your respective common rooms, expresses interest in your collaborative approach to magical learning. Her questions about your methods and progress reveal that your informal study group has attracted positive attention from faculty members who recognize its educational value. Inter-house cooperation was always part of the founder's vision for Hogwarts, she explains while observing your group's work on a complex transfiguration project that requires combining theoretical knowledge, practical skill, and careful teamwork. The house system provides foundations for magical development, but true mastery requires learning to work with practitioners who approach magic differently than you do. Her endorsement of your collaborative learning leads to official recognition and support from the faculty, with professors from different departments offering resources and guidance that enhance your group's capabilities while maintaining the informal, student-directed approach that makes your sessions so effective and enjoyable. Professor Flitwick provides access to advanced charms texts that aren't normally available to first-year students, while Professor Sprout contributes rare magical plants that allow hands-on experience with specimens that most students don't encounter until much later in their education. Professor Snape, despite his stern demeanor, offers brewing equipment and ingredients that enable more sophisticated potion work than standard classroom supplies would permit. Your collaborative approach demonstrates understanding of magical principles that many students don't develop until their final years at Hogwarts. Professor Flitwick comments during one of his visits to observe your group's progress. Learning to integrate different magical specialties requires both technical competence and social skills that are equally important for successful magical careers. The projects your group undertakes become increasingly ambitious as your confidence and capabilities grow, with each success building on previous achievements while introducing new challenges that stretch your abilities and understanding. The magical theory you're exploring goes far beyond first-year curriculum, but your collaborative approach makes advanced concepts accessible through peer teaching and mutual support. Your latest project involves creating a comprehensive protection system for the magical plants in Professor Sprout's greenhouse, requiring coordination between defensive magic, plant care expertise, environmental control charms, and strategic planning to address multiple threats while maintaining optimal growing conditions for sensitive magical flora. This kind of integrated magical problem-solving, explains your Slytherin friend, while working on the defensive components of the protection system, represents the type of challenges that professional magical practitioners face regularly. Learning to address them now prepares us for career responsibilities that most students don't encounter until after graduation. The success of your greenhouse protection project earns recognition not just from Hogwarts faculty, but also from external magical professionals who visit the school to observe innovative student work. Their interest in your collaborative methods and integrated approach to magical problem-solving provides validation that your learning group has developed something genuinely valuable and forward-thinking. A representative from the Department for Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures expresses particular interest in your group's approach to protective magic, noting that the techniques you've developed could have applications for safeguarding magical habitats and endangered magical species throughout the wizarding world. Student innovation often leads to breakthrough developments in professional magical practice, the ministry representative explains during her visit to observe your project. Your collaborative approach and integrated thinking represent exactly the kind of fresh perspectives that the magical community needs to address contemporary challenges. The recognition from professional magical practitioners opens new opportunities for advanced learning and practical experience that go far beyond normal first-year educational expectations. Your group receives invitations to observe professional magical work, participate in research projects, and contribute to real-world magical problem-solving that makes your education immediately relevant and impactful. Your parents' response to news of these opportunities reflects both pride in your achievements and amazement at how quickly your magical education has progressed beyond anything they had imagined possible. Their letters express support for your collaborative learning while also encouraging you to maintain balance between advanced projects and normal first-year social and academic activities. We're thrilled that you're excelling in your magical studies. Your mother writes, "But we also want to make sure you're enjoying the normal aspects of school life that make education memorable and meaningful. Achievement is important, but friendship and personal growth matter just as much." Her advice proves wise as you realize that your collaborative learning group has indeed become one of the most important sources of friendship and personal support in your Hogwarts experience. The bonds formed through working together on challenging projects create relationships that extend far beyond academic cooperation into genuine care and concern for each other's overall well-being and happiness. The inter-house friendships you've developed provide perspectives on Hogwarts life that you could never have gained from interacting only with your own housemates, enriching your understanding of how different students experience magical education and what draws them to particular aspects of magical study and practice. Your Hufflepuff friends' patient approach to learning has taught you the value of taking time to fully understand concepts before moving on to more advanced material, while your Ravenclaw friends' analytical thinking has shown you how to identify underlying principles that connect seemingly unrelated magical phenomena. The Slytherin member of your group has demonstrated how ambition and strategic thinking can be applied constructively to achieve goals that benefit everyone involved, challenging stereotypes about house characteristics while revealing the positive potential in traits that are sometimes viewed negatively. Every house has strengths and weaknesses. Your Slytherin friend observes during one of your regular discussions about magical philosophy and educational approaches. Working together allows us to compensate for each other's limitations while amplifying each other's strengths in ways that make everyone more capable and effective. These friendships have also provided emotional support during the inevitable challenges and setbacks that accompany ambitious magical learning, with group members offering encouragement, alternative perspectives, and practical assistance when individual projects or personal issues become overwhelming. The collaborative problem-solving skills you've developed through your learning group prove valuable in regular classroom situations as well, where professors increasingly call on you to help explain complex concepts to struggling classmates or to demonstrate advanced techniques that illustrate theoretical principles. Your reputation for academic excellence combined with willingness to help others creates opportunities for peer tutoring and mentoring that enhance your own understanding while contributing to the overall academic success of your year level across all houses. Teaching others is one of the best ways to deepen your own understanding. You tell a second-year student who's having difficulty with advanced charms work, and helping classmates succeed creates a positive learning environment that benefits everyone. The leadership skills you're developing through collaborative learning and peer mentoring prepare you for increasing responsibilities within both your house community and the broader Hogwarts student body, with older students and faculty members beginning to recognize your potential for formal leadership roles in future years. Your head of house mentions the possibility of prefect selection during your later years at Hogwarts, noting that your combination of academic achievement, collaborative spirit, and genuine concern for others' welfare represents exactly the qualities that effective student leaders need to possess and demonstrate. The magical abilities you've developed through collaborative learning continue to grow stronger and more sophisticated. But more importantly, you're developing wisdom about how to use those abilities responsibly and effectively in service of goals that extend beyond personal achievement to encompass community welfare and advancement. Your understanding of what magical education can and should accomplish has expanded far beyond career preparation or individual advancement to encompass preparation for lifelong learning, service to the magical community, and contribution to the ongoing development of magical knowledge and practice. As your first year at Hogwarts draws toward its conclusion, you reflect on how much your understanding of magic, friendship, and personal purpose has evolved since that nervous first night when the Sorting Hat placed you in your house and you wondered whether you truly belonged in the magical world. The collaborative learning group that emerged from crisis response has become a foundation for continued growth and development that will influence your entire Hogwarts experience and beyond, demonstrating that the most powerful magic often comes not from individual brilliance, but from the connections and partnerships that allow people to achieve together what none of them could accomplish alone. Your magical mastery continues to develop through practice, study, and collaboration, but now it's guided by understanding that true mastery serves purposes greater than personal satisfaction or recognition, contributing to the welfare of others and the advancement of magical knowledge and practice for the benefit of current and future generations. The bonds forged through shared learning and mutual support have created a foundation for lifelong friendship and professional collaboration that will enhance every aspect of your future magical career. While the collaborative approaches you've developed will serve you well in any magical profession or life path you eventually choose to pursue. 6 months into your magical education, you're given the ultimate gift that will transform your understanding of what Hogwarts truly represents when Professor Dumbledore approaches you with an opportunity to glimpse into the castle's past and witness firsthand how the bonds between students transcend time itself, connecting every generation of magical learners in an unbroken chain of friendship, mentorship, and shared purpose that makes Hogwarts more than just a school, but a living legacy of magical community. The invitation comes during what should have been an ordinary evening in the library, where you're researching advanced charms theory for one of your collaborative projects, when Professor Dumbledore appears beside your table with the quiet grace that allows him to move through the castle without disturbing the peaceful atmosphere that makes Hogwarts feel like a sanctuary for learning and growth. "I wonder if you might have time for a brief conversation," he says with the gentle courtesy that makes even his most unusual requests seem perfectly reasonable and natural. "There is something I believe you would find both educational and personally meaningful, though I should warn you that the experience may change your perspective on your magical education in ways that are profound and lasting." His office, when you arrive there, feels even more magical and mysterious than usual, with instruments humming and clicking in harmonious patterns that suggest complex magical processes operating beyond your current understanding. The portraits of previous headmasters and headmistresses observe your arrival with expressions of curiosity and approval, as if they've been expecting your visit and are pleased to finally meet you in person. Your collaborative learning group, Professor Dumbledore, begins while settling into his chair behind the magnificent desk that dominates the circular office, has attracted attention not just from current faculty members, but also from those who have dedicated their afterlives to observing and supporting Hogwarts' educational mission. As he speaks, several of the portraits lean forward in their frames, their painted faces showing interest and engagement that makes you realize they're not just decorative artwork but active participants in Hogwarts' ongoing governance and educational philosophy. These former headmasters and headmistresses have been watching your progress and discussing your potential with Professor Dumbledore. Every generation of Hogwarts students includes individuals who demonstrate exceptional promise, not just as magical practitioners, but as bridges between different approaches to magic and life, continues Professor Dumbledore, his blue eyes twinkling with the kind of warm approval that makes you feel both honored and slightly overwhelmed by the significance of whatever he's about to propose. Your collaborative work across house boundaries, your response during the classroom crisis, and your commitment to helping fellow students achieve their potential have marked you as someone ready for a deeper understanding of what Hogwarts represents and why the connections formed here endure far beyond graduation and even beyond life itself. The device he retrieves from a cabinet filled with mysterious magical instruments looks like a cross between a telescope and a pensieve, its silver surface reflecting not your current surroundings, but swirling images that seem to show different time periods and different groups of students engaged in activities that span centuries of Hogwarts history. This is a temporal reflection chamber, Professor Dumbledore explains while making delicate adjustments to various components of the complex magical instrument. It allows qualified observers to witness significant moments from Hogwarts' past, not as distant history but as lived experience that helps illuminate the continuing patterns and purposes that make this institution unique. The opportunity to actually witness Hogwarts history unfold before your eyes feels like the culmination of everything you've learned about magical education and the communities that make learning possible. But Professor Dumbledore's words about profound and lasting changes to your perspective suggest that this experience will challenge your understanding in ways that you may not be fully prepared to handle. "Are you certain you want to proceed?" he asks with the kind of gentle seriousness that acknowledges both the honor of the opportunity and the responsibility that comes with deeper knowledge. Once you understand the full scope of what Hogwarts represents and your place in its continuing mission, you cannot return to the simpler perspective of ordinary magical education. Your acceptance opens the temporal reflection chamber. And suddenly, you're not just sitting in Professor Dumbledore's office, but standing in the Great Hall as it existed decades earlier, watching students who graduated long before you were born, but whose faces show the same excitement, nervousness, and determination that you remember from your own first days at Hogwarts. The sorting ceremony you witness takes place during a time of great danger for the wizarding world, when dark forces threatened not just individual safety but the entire structure of magical society. Yet the students being sorted show the same mixture of hope and anxiety that characterizes every group of first years, their concern for house placement temporarily overshadowing their awareness of external threats. Even during the darkest periods of magical history, Professor Dumbledore's voice reaches you across the decades. Hogwarts has continued to welcome new students, to nurture their magical development, and to prepare them for whatever challenges they will face after graduation. The institution endures because each generation of students commits to preserving and protecting what they have received for those who will follow. You watch as these historical students form friendships that transcend house boundaries, work together on projects that combine different magical approaches, and support each other through challenges that test both their magical abilities and their character. The patterns are remarkably similar to your own experience, suggesting that the essential dynamics of Hogwarts education remain consistent across generations and circumstances. A group of students from different houses collaborate on a complex magical project that requires exactly the kind of integrated thinking and cooperative spirit that your own learning group has developed, demonstrating that your innovative approach actually represents a rediscovery of educational methods that have appeared repeatedly throughout Hogwarts history whenever students have been ready for advanced collaborative learning. The founder's vision, Professor Dumbledore explains, as you observe these historical students achieving remarkable results through their cooperation, was never that the four houses should remain permanently separate, but that they should provide different approaches to magical development that would eventually combine to create more comprehensive and effective magical practitioners. The scene shifts to show you the same students years later, now graduated and working as professional magical practitioners, but maintaining the friendships and collaborative relationships that began during their Hogwarts education. Their careers span different specialties and different aspects of magical society, but they continue to support each other and work together on projects that require diverse expertise and perspectives. The bonds formed at Hogwarts, Professor Dumbledore continues, create networks of mutual support and collaboration that strengthen the entire magical community and enable achievements that no individual practitioner could accomplish in isolation. Your education here prepares you not just for personal success but for lifelong participation in a community dedicated to the advancement of magical knowledge and the protection of magical society. Another temporal shift reveals students from an even earlier period, recognizable by their different robes and slightly archaic speech patterns, but unmistakably engaged in the same kind of learning, growth, and relationship building that defines Hogwarts education across all eras. These students face different external challenges and work with different magical technologies, but their fundamental experiences mirror your own with remarkable consistency. You begin to understand that your individual journey through Hogwarts education, while personally meaningful and unique in its specific details, represents participation in patterns and traditions that connect you to every student who has ever walked these corridors, sat in these classrooms, or formed friendships that transcend the artificial boundaries that sometimes divide magical society. The collaborative learning group that has become so important to your own educational experience appears in various forms throughout Hogwarts history, with different students in different eras discovering the same benefits of inter-house cooperation and integrated magical study. Your innovation actually represents rediscovery of approaches that emerge naturally whenever students are ready for advanced collaborative learning. Each generation believes it is pioneering new educational methods, Professor Dumbledore observes with gentle amusement, but the most effective approaches to magical learning tend to be rediscovered repeatedly because they reflect fundamental truths about how magic works and how human beings learn most effectively when working together toward shared goals. The temporal images show you moments of crisis from different periods of Hogwarts history, with students responding to various threats and challenges with the same combination of courage, creativity, and mutual support that characterized your own response to the classroom emergency. The specific threats change, but the essential dynamics of how Hogwarts students protect their community remain remarkably consistent. Crisis reveals character, Professor Dumbledore notes as you watch historical students make choices that demonstrate their commitment to protecting others rather than simply ensuring their own safety. But it also reveals the strength of the educational foundation that Hogwarts provides, preparing students to respond to unexpected challenges with wisdom, courage, and genuine concern for community welfare. The scenes you witness include moments of celebration as well as crisis, showing how Hogwarts students throughout history have marked achievements, milestones, and transitions with communal joy that reinforces the bonds between individuals while connecting them to the larger institutional mission that transcends any single generation of students or faculty. Graduation ceremonies from different eras show the mixture of sadness and excitement that accompanies the end of formal magical education. But they also reveal how leaving Hogwarts represents not separation from the magical community, but transition to new roles and responsibilities within that community, maintaining connections while accepting new obligations. Graduation is not an ending, but a transformation, Professor Dumbledore explains as you watch former students return to Hogwarts as accomplished magical practitioners, visiting teachers, and eventually faculty members who dedicate their careers to nurturing the next generation of magical learners. The relationships formed here provide foundation for lifelong learning and service that extends far beyond formal educational requirements. You begin to see your own potential future reflected in these historical graduates, understanding that your current collaborative learning experiences are preparing you not just for academic success, but for professional relationships and community involvement that will define your entire adult life in the magical world. The temporal reflection concludes with images of the castle itself across different seasons and decades, showing how the physical structure of Hogwarts remains essentially unchanged, while adapting to serve the needs of each new generation of students. The stones that have witnessed centuries of magical education continue to provide sanctuary for learning, growth, and community building. Hogwarts endures, Professor Dumbledore concludes as the images fade and you find yourself back in his office, surrounded by the familiar instruments and portraits that connect the present moment to all the history you've just witnessed, because each generation of students accepts responsibility for preserving and protecting what they have received while adapting it to serve the needs of their own time and the challenges they will face. The weight of this responsibility settles around your shoulders like an invisible cloak, but instead of feeling burdensome, it provides a sense of purpose and connection that makes your individual magical education part of something infinitely larger and more meaningful than personal achievement or career preparation. Your understanding of your place at Hogwarts has been transformed from that of a student receiving education to that of a temporary guardian of an institution that must be preserved and strengthened for future generations, while your collaborative learning group now appears as part of an ongoing tradition that connects you to centuries of students who have made similar discoveries about the power of cooperation and mutual support. As you prepare to return to your dormitory and the normal rhythms of Hogwarts life, you carry with you a new appreciation for every aspect of your magical education and a deeper commitment to making the most of the opportunities you've been given while preparing to pass on what you've learned to those who will follow in your footsteps. You witness the founding of Hogwarts and understand the true vision behind the four houses when the temporal reflection chamber transports you back over 1,000 years to observe the moment when four of the greatest magical minds in history came together with a shared dream of creating an institution that would nurture magical talent while building bridges between different approaches to magic and life. The experience unfolds like stepping into a living legend where every detail carries the weight of decisions that would shape magical education for centuries to come. The medieval landscape that surrounds the young Hogwarts castle looks dramatically different from the grounds you know, with ancient forests stretching unbroken to distant horizons and magical creatures roaming freely through wilderness that has not yet been touched by the expanding non-magical world. The castle itself appears newer but somehow more organic, as if it has grown from the earth rather than being constructed by conventional building methods, its towers and corridors shaped by magic that responds to the founder's vision of what magical education should become. Godric Gryffindor stands on the highest tower, his red and gold robes billowing in wind that seems to carry the promise of adventures yet to come, while he gestures toward the Great Hall where the first students will soon gather for meals and ceremonies that will create traditions lasting a millennium. His presence radiates the courage and determination that will define his house, but you can see in his expression a deeper understanding that true bravery involves not just facing physical danger, but accepting the responsibility to protect and nurture those who look to you for guidance and inspiration. "We are not just creating a school," he declares to his three companions, his voice carrying the authority of someone who has led others through battles both magical and mundane, but establishing a legacy that will endure long after our own magic has faded from the world. Every decision we make here will influence thousands of students who have not yet been born, and we must consider not just what serves our immediate purposes but what will benefit the magical community for generations to come. Helga Hufflepuff moves through the castle's kitchens and common areas with the practical wisdom of someone who understands that grand visions require careful attention to daily necessities and human comfort. Her yellow and black robes seem to glow with warmth that makes even the stone corridors feel welcoming and homey, while she tests the magical systems that will provide food, warmth, and security for students whose families are entrusting them to an experimental educational institution. Magic is most powerful when it serves the needs of real people facing real challenges, she observes, while adjusting the heating charms that will keep dormitories comfortable through Scottish winters, and our school will succeed or fail based on whether students feel genuinely cared for and supported in their daily lives, not just in their formal magical instruction. Her approach to magical education emphasizes the importance of practical skills, emotional support, and the kind of inclusive community that welcomes students regardless of their family background or natural magical ability. The systems she designs are intended to help every student achieve their personal best rather than competing for artificial recognition based on narrow definitions of magical success. Rowena Ravenclaw works in the library that will become the heart of Hogwarts' intellectual life, surrounded by books and scrolls that represent the accumulated magical knowledge of her time while leaving space for the discoveries and innovations that future generations of students will contribute to the collection. Her blue and silver robes shimmer with intellectual energy that makes even complex magical theory seem accessible and exciting rather than intimidating or exclusive. Knowledge without wisdom is dangerous, she explains while organizing the texts that will guide centuries of magical education. But wisdom without knowledge is impotent. Our students must learn not just how to perform magic, but how to think about magic, how to question established practices, and how to contribute to the ongoing development of magical understanding in ways that benefit everyone. The library she designs includes not just books containing established magical knowledge, but also empty volumes waiting to be filled with research and discoveries made by future students, emphasizing that magical education should prepare young witches and wizards to advance their field rather than simply inheriting what previous generations have accomplished. Salazar Slytherin explores the castle's defensive systems and hidden passages with the strategic mind of someone who understands that magical institutions face threats from both external enemies and internal corruption. His green and silver robes seem to blend with shadows and stone, making him nearly invisible as he tests magical protections that will safeguard students and faculty from dangers that range from political persecution to dark magical attacks. Ambition without principle leads to tyranny, he acknowledges while examining the wards that will protect Hogwarts from those who would exploit or corrupt magical education, but principle without ambition leads to stagnation. Our students must learn to pursue excellence and achievement while maintaining the ethical standards that make magical power beneficial rather than destructive. His vision includes not just protecting Hogwarts from external threats, but ensuring that the institution itself never becomes a source of corruption or oppression, with safeguards designed to prevent any individual or group from gaining excessive control over educational policies or student welfare. The conversation between the four founders reveals the careful thought and extensive planning that went into every aspect of Hogwarts' design, from the house system that would provide both belonging and diversity, to the curriculum that would balance practical magical skills with theoretical understanding and ethical development. Their discussions show how apparent disagreements about educational philosophy actually reflect complementary approaches that strengthen the overall educational mission. The house system, Godric Gryffindor explains during a late-night planning session in what will become the headmaster's office, serves multiple purposes that extend far beyond simple dormitory organization. It provides students with immediate community and identity while ensuring that different approaches to magic and life are preserved and celebrated rather than homogenized into false uniformity. But the houses must not become rigid categories that prevent students from learning and growing beyond their initial sorting. Rowena Ravenclaw adds, her analytical mind identifying potential problems that could emerge if the system becomes too inflexible or exclusionary. We need structures that encourage house loyalty while promoting inter-house cooperation and understanding. The houses should be more like families than political factions, Helga Hufflepuff contributes, her practical wisdom focusing on the emotional and social needs that the system must address to succeed in nurturing young people through the challenging years of magical education. Students need both the security of belonging and the challenge of engaging with different perspectives and approaches, and each house must produce graduates who can work together despite their different temperaments and priorities. Salazar Slytherin concludes, his strategic thinking already anticipating the professional and social relationships that will connect Hogwarts alumni throughout their careers in magical society. The goal is not to create 4 separate magical traditions, but to develop practitioners who can combine different strengths as circumstances require. The sorting ceremony they design reflects these complex educational goals, with the sorting hat serving not just as a placement mechanism, but as a wise counselor that helps students understand their own potential while connecting them to communities that will support their development. The hat's decision-making process considers not just personality traits, but also what each student needs to grow and what they can contribute to their house community. The hat will see potential that students themselves may not recognize, Rowena Ravenclaw explains, while imbuing the magical artifact with centuries of accumulated wisdom about human nature and magical development. Its sorting decisions will sometimes seem surprising, but they will reflect understanding of how different students can best develop their abilities and contribute to the magical community. The curriculum they establish integrates practical magical skills with theoretical understanding, ethical education, and the kind of collaborative problem-solving that will prepare students for the complex challenges they will face as adult members of magical society. Each subject contributes not just specific knowledge, but also ways of thinking and approaching problems that will serve students throughout their lives. Transfiguration teaches students that change is possible and that apparent limitations can be overcome through skill and determination, explains one founder while designing the course requirements that will challenge and inspire generations of students. Charms instruction demonstrates how magic can enhance daily life and improve conditions for everyone, while potions work shows the importance of precision, patience, and understanding how different elements interact to create desired outcomes. Defense against the dark arts represents perhaps the most complex educational challenge, requiring students to understand dangerous magical practices without becoming corrupted by them, while developing the judgment necessary to distinguish between appropriate defensive measures and excessive responses that could cause more harm than the original threats. Students must learn to protect themselves and others, the founders agree, but they must also understand that the greatest defense against dark magic is the positive magical community that makes such protection necessary and worthwhile. Evil flourishes in isolation and fear, while good magic grows stronger through connection and mutual support. The physical design of Hogwarts reflects these educational philosophies, with common areas that encourage inter-house interaction, balanced by house-specific spaces that provide identity and belonging, while the overall architecture creates an environment that feels both secure and inspiring, encouraging students to take appropriate educational risks while maintaining their physical and emotional safety. The Great Hall serves as the symbolic heart of this design, bringing all students together for meals and ceremonies that reinforce their shared membership in the Hogwarts community, while the house tables maintain distinct identities and traditions. The enchanted ceiling connects the indoor space to the natural world beyond the castle walls, reminding students that their magical education prepares them for lives that extend far beyond the school itself. Every architectural detail should support our educational mission. The founders agree while reviewing plans that will create spaces for formal instruction, independent study, collaborative projects, recreation, and the kind of informal social interaction that often produces the most important learning and personal growth. Students should feel challenged and supported, connected to their house identity and to the broader magical community. The selection of faculty represents another crucial decision that will influence Hogwarts' character for centuries to come, with the founders choosing teachers who combine expertise in their subjects with genuine commitment to student welfare and educational excellence. The teaching approaches they establish emphasize not just content delivery but also mentorship, character development, and preparation for lifelong learning. Teachers must be both masters of their subjects and wise guides for students navigating the transition from childhood to adult membership in magical society. The founders recognize while establishing standards that will attract the most accomplished and dedicated magical practitioners to educational careers. Academic knowledge alone is insufficient if it is not combined with understanding of how young people learn and grow. The magical protections they weave into Hogwarts' foundation go far beyond physical security to include safeguards for intellectual freedom, emotional well-being, and the kinds of educational risk-taking that produce genuine learning and personal development. These protections are designed to evolve with changing circumstances while maintaining core principles that will remain relevant regardless of external political or social changes. Hogwarts must be a sanctuary for learning and growth, The founders declare while establishing wards that will protect not just bodies but minds and souls, where students can explore their potential without fear of persecution or manipulation, while developing the skills and character that will enable them to contribute positively to whatever magical society exists when they graduate. The vision they articulate for Hogwarts graduates encompasses not just professional competence but also civic engagement, ethical leadership, and the kind of ongoing commitment to learning and community service that will strengthen magical society while protecting it from corruption and stagnation. As the temporal reflection concludes and you return to Professor Dumbledore's office, you carry with you a profound understanding of how the casual conversations and daily interactions of your Hogwarts experience connect to deliberate educational designs created by four of history's greatest magical minds, each of whom sacrificed personal ambitions to create an institution that would serve others for countless generations. Your journey through time reveals that every Hogwarts student becomes part of an eternal family that transcends death itself, connected by bonds of shared experience and mutual care that continue to protect and nurture the castle and its mission long after individual lives have ended, creating a legacy of love and service that makes Hogwarts truly immortal in ways that go far beyond its physical existence or institutional reputation. The final temporal shift takes you forward through centuries of Hogwarts history, revealing how the founder's vision has been maintained and adapted by countless generations of students, faculty, and graduates who have dedicated their lives to preserving what they received while ensuring that the institution continues to serve the changing needs of magical society. What you witness transforms your understanding of what it means to be part of the Hogwarts community, from a temporary educational experience to a lifelong commitment that extends beyond life itself. The Great Hall appears as it exists across different eras, with students from various time periods sharing meals and conversations that span centuries of magical history. You begin to understand that the portraits throughout the castle represent only the most visible portion of a vast community of former students and faculty who maintain ongoing connections to Hogwarts and continue to contribute to its educational mission through various forms of service and support. Death, Professor Dumbledore explains as you observe this impossible gathering of past and present, does not sever the bonds formed through genuine magical education, because those bonds are based on shared values and mutual commitment that transcend physical existence. Every student who has truly embraced what Hogwarts offers becomes part of its eternal community. The ghosts who wander Hogwarts corridors represent the most obvious examples of this eternal connection, but you discover that they are merely the visible portion of a much larger community of former students who maintain various forms of ongoing relationship with the castle and its current inhabitants. Some return as portraits, others as protective spirits, and still others through more subtle forms of magical presence that influence events without being directly observable. Nearly headless Nick appears beside you in the Great Hall, his translucent form more solid and purposeful than you have ever seen it before, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by profound seriousness as he explains the true nature of his continued presence at Hogwarts and the responsibilities that come with choosing to remain connected to the institution after death. "I could have moved on to whatever lies beyond death," he explains while gesturing towards students from different eras who continue their conversations despite being separated by centuries of lived experience. "But I chose to remain here because Hogwarts gave me everything that made my life meaningful, and I wanted to continue serving the mission that had served me so well during my mortal years." The Grey Lady, Ravenclaw's house ghost, shares similar sentiments while describing her ongoing efforts to guide students toward the kind of intellectual growth and wisdom that her house values, her centuries of observation providing insights into educational patterns and student needs that prove invaluable for adapting traditional teaching methods to serve contemporary challenges. Every generation of students faces unique circumstances and challenges, she observes while pointing toward the various time periods represented in the temporal gathering, but the fundamental human needs for belonging, challenge, and purpose remain constant across all eras. Our ongoing presence allows us to help current students benefit from the accumulated wisdom of everyone who has faced similar challenges before them. The Bloody Baron, despite his intimidating appearance and tragic history, reveals a deep commitment to helping Slytherin students understand that ambition and cunning can serve noble purposes when guided by ethical principles and genuine concern for community welfare. His continued presence at Hogwarts represents an ongoing effort to prevent other students from making the mistakes that led to his own tragic end. Redemption, he explains, with the gravity of someone who has spent centuries contemplating the consequences of his actions, is not just about personal forgiveness, but about using your experience, even painful experience, to help others avoid similar errors and achieve the positive potential that exists within every ambitious person. The Fat Friar, Hufflepuff's cheerful ghost, embodies the house values of loyalty and inclusiveness in his ongoing efforts to ensure that every student feels welcomed and supported, regardless of their magical ability, family background, or personal challenges. His presence provides continuity between different eras of Hogwarts history, while maintaining the welcoming atmosphere that makes the castle feel like home for students from all backgrounds. Love and acceptance, he declares, while embracing students from different time periods with the same warmth and enthusiasm. Never go out of style, never become outdated, and never cease to be exactly what young people need most during their educational years. These values are as important today as they were when Helga Hufflepuff first articulated them. But the ghosts represent only the most visible portion of the eternal Hogwarts community. As the temporal experience continues, you begin to perceive the subtle presence of countless former students and faculty members who maintain ongoing connections to the castle and its mission through various forms of magical service and protection that operate below the threshold of normal awareness. The protective enchantments that safeguard Hogwarts are maintained not just by current faculty members, but by generations of graduates who continue to contribute their magical energy and expertise to keeping the castle secure and functional. Every ward, every defensive spell, every magical system that keeps Hogwarts operating safely draws on the accumulated power and wisdom of everyone who has ever called the castle home. Magical protection, Professor Dumbledore explains while gesturing toward the invisible network of enchantments that surround you, is most powerful when it is motivated by genuine love and maintained by ongoing commitment. The spells that protect Hogwarts work not because they are technically sophisticated, though they are, but because they are powered by the care and dedication of thousands of people who value what this institution represents. The library's collection includes not just physical books and scrolls, but also the accumulated knowledge and wisdom of every student and faculty member who has contributed to Hogwarts' intellectual life. Research conducted by current students builds on foundations laid by countless predecessors, while new discoveries are automatically preserved and made available to future generations through magical systems that connect all periods of the castle's existence. Knowledge. Rowena Ravenclaw's voice echoes through the library. Though her physical form is not visible, belongs not to individuals but to the entire magical community, and Hogwarts serves as a repository and distribution center for wisdom that spans centuries of magical discovery and innovation. Every student who has ever learned something meaningful here becomes part of that eternal collection. The common rooms maintain the presence and influence of former students who continue to guide and support current house members through various forms of magical mentorship and protection. The comfortable furniture, welcoming fires, and atmosphere of belonging that characterize each house common room are maintained not just by house elves and magical systems, but by the ongoing care of everyone who has ever found family within those walls. Your own house common room reveals layers of history and connection that you had never perceived before, with the ghosts of former students sharing advice, encouragement, and practical guidance with current residents. The portraits on the walls include not just famous historical figures, but also ordinary graduates who chose to maintain their connection to their house family through this form of ongoing presence. House loyalty, explains a portrait of a graduate from several decades earlier, doesn't end with graduation but continues throughout life and beyond, creating networks of mutual support and shared responsibility that connect every generation of students to every other generation. You are part of a family that extends backward and forward through time. The faculty represents another crucial component of the eternal Hogwarts community, with many professors choosing to dedicate their entire careers to magical education, not just for personal satisfaction, but as part of ongoing service to the institution that shaped their own development. The relationships between faculty members and students create bonds that continue to influence and support graduates throughout their lives. Professor McGonagall, Professor Flitwick, Professor Sprout, and even Professor Snape are revealed as part of this eternal community, their teaching careers representing not just professional responsibilities but lifelong commitments to preserving and transmitting the values and knowledge that make Hogwarts special. Their dedication to student welfare extends far beyond classroom instruction to encompass ongoing mentorship and support that continues long after graduation. Teaching. Professor McGonagall's voice resonates with decades of educational experience, is not just about transmitting knowledge, but about nurturing human potential and helping young people discover their place in the larger community that surrounds and supports them. Every student we teach becomes part of our extended family, and our concern for their welfare never ends. The castle itself emerges as a conscious participant in this eternal community, with its magical systems and architectural features responding to the needs and emotions of current inhabitants while maintaining connections to everyone who has ever lived within its walls. The moving staircases, protective enchantments, and even the portraits represent aspects of a vast magical consciousness that has been shaped by centuries of shared life and learning. Hogwarts. The castle seems to communicate directly to your mind. Though no voice is audible, is more than stone and mortar, more than magical systems and protective enchantments. It is the accumulated love, wisdom, and commitment of everyone who has ever called it home, and that community continues to grow with every student who truly embraces what it means to be part of something greater than themselves. Your collaborative learning group, which has been so important to your own educational experience, appears as part of a continuing tradition that connects you to similar groups throughout Hogwarts history. Students from different eras who discovered the same benefits of inter-house cooperation and integrated magical study share their experiences and insights, creating a network of collaboration that spans centuries. What you have discovered, explains a graduate from the Victorian era whose own collaborative group helped develop innovative approaches to magical problem solving, is not new but timeless, not unique but universal. Every generation of Hogwarts students that is ready for advanced cooperative learning rediscovers these methods and contributes to their ongoing development. The professional networks that connect Hogwarts graduates throughout magical society are revealed as extensions of the relationships formed during their school years, with house loyalties and cross-house friendships creating systems of mutual support and collaboration that strengthen the entire magical community while maintaining connections to their shared educational foundation. Graduation. Professor Dumbledore concludes as the temporal experience begins to wind down and you prepare to return to your own time and place, is not an ending but a transformation from receiving magical education to contributing to its ongoing mission. Every graduate becomes part of the eternal community that ensures Hogwarts continues to serve future generations while adapting to meet changing circumstances and challenges. The bonds you have formed with fellow students, faculty members, and the castle itself are revealed as connections that will continue throughout your life and beyond, creating obligations and opportunities that will define your relationship to the magical community and your role in preserving and advancing the values and knowledge that make magical education meaningful and beneficial. Your return to the present moment in Professor Dumbledore's office carries with it a transformed understanding of your place at Hogwarts and your future responsibilities as a member of the eternal community that makes the institution truly immortal. The weight of this knowledge feels both inspiring and daunting, but you understand that accepting these responsibilities is part of what makes magical education valuable and meaningful rather than simply useful for career preparation. As you prepare to return to your dormitory and the normal rhythms of student life, you carry with you the understanding that every choice you make, every relationship you form, and every lesson you learn contributes to a legacy that will influence magical education for generations to come, while connecting you to a community of caring that transcends the boundaries of life and death. As you return to the present, everything looks exactly the same, but feels completely different, because now you understand that Hogwarts isn't just a school where you're learning magic for 7 years, but a home where you're discovering who you're meant to become for the rest of your life and beyond. The transformation isn't in your surroundings, but in your understanding of what it truly means to belong to something greater than yourself, something that connects you to centuries of students who walked these same corridors and will continue to connect you to those who will follow in your footsteps. Your journey through 4 interconnected tales has revealed the complete picture of what magical education represents and what obligations come with the privilege of being part of the Hogwarts community. The nervous first year who stepped through the Great Hall doors what feels like a lifetime ago has become someone who understands that the Sorting Hat's decision was never about placing you in a convenient dormitory arrangement, but about connecting you to the specific community that would nurture your growth while preparing you to contribute to something infinitely larger than personal achievement. The house newcomer who struggled to understand where they belonged learned that true belonging means being accepted for who you are while being challenged to become who you're capable of being. The castle explorer who uncovered ancient mysteries discovered that knowledge brings responsibility and that some secrets are preserved not to exclude people but to ensure they're ready for the power that knowledge provides. The daily magic student who mastered spells and potions realized that magical education extends far beyond technical competence to encompass wisdom, character, and the understanding that magic serves its highest purpose when used to protect and serve others. The time traveler who witnessed Hogwarts' founding and eternal legacy learned that every student becomes part of a community that transcends individual lifetimes and continues to nurture and protect magical education across generations. Each revelation has built upon the previous ones, creating a comprehensive understanding of what makes Hogwarts special and what makes your presence here meaningful. You're not just receiving an education, you're becoming part of a tradition of service and protection that turns magical knowledge into a force for good in the world. The collaborative friendships you formed across house boundaries will continue to grow and strengthen throughout your remaining years at Hogwarts and beyond, creating networks of mutual support and shared purpose that will enhance every aspect of your adult life in the magical community. The lessons you've learned about courage, loyalty, wisdom, and ambition working together will guide you through challenges and opportunities that you can't yet imagine. Rest now, knowing that you've found your true home and your true family. Tomorrow brings new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities to grow into the person you're meant to become. But tonight, you can sleep peacefully in the knowledge that you belong exactly where you are, surrounded by friends who understand your journey because they're traveling the same path, protected by a community that has been keeping students safe for over 1,000 years. Welcome home to Hogwarts, where magic lives, friendships flourish, and every student discovers that they've always had everything they need to be extraordinary. The castle will always be here to welcome you home, no matter how far your magical journey takes you. Sweet dreams, young witch or wizard. Your real adventure is just beginning.